So this year, before September, a star in the constellation of Corona Borealis will explode, and in the northern hemisphere, we'll be able to see it with the unaided eye. This star is T Corona Borealis, a white dwarf star 3,000 light-years away from our solar system. It will turn into a nova, which we'll discuss a bit later, in spring or summer. Even though this occurrence is predictable, happening every 80 years, it's still a once-in-a-lifetime event, if you're human. T Corona Borealis is not your regular star. It's actually a binary, two stars orbiting each other. This pair, though, is incredibly special. Occasionally, the stars increase their brightness to such an extent that they become visible on Earth. The white dwarf star is the more massive one of the two. But the most shocking thing about it is that it might pack the same mass as the Sun into a volume only as large as Earth. The companion star, an aging red giant, has already expanded so much that it's dumping its material onto the white dwarf. So it's time for another explosion for these two. It's going to take the star's brightness from magnitude 11 to magnitude 2. You see, in astronomy, magnitude is used to measure the brightness of a star or another celestial object. The brighter it is, the lower the number assigned as a magnitude is. Just like golf, low scores, you know. In our case, it means that we'll be able to see the star with the unaided eye, even in light-polluted skies. Now, we can only see the binary with binoculars in a completely dark sky. After the outburst, T Corona Borealis will remain the brightest star in the constellation of Corona Borealis for a few days before gradually dimming. Now, this event shouldn't be confused with a supernova. In a supernova, a star's core collapses, which leads to its complete destruction. It can only happen to a star 8 times the mass of the Sun. Instead of disappearing in a blinding flash of light forever, T Corona Borealis will experience a nova, an explosion on its surface, flinging matter into space but not ruining the star itself. Such recurrent novas happen at regular intervals. T Corona Borealis was known to astronomers from the past as the Blaze Star. Last time it exploded in 1866 and 1946. Astronomers from NASA believe it's going to do it again before September this year. The constellation of Corona Borealis, also known as the Northern Crown, is one of the most beautiful out there. It's a curved semicircle of 7 stars, which is easy to find in April. You should go outside 2 hours after dark and look to the east-northeast. Once you find the Big Dipper, use the curve of its handle to go to Arcturus, finding the bright star in the Buddhist constellation due east. If you go diagonally down to the east-northeast horizon, you'll spot Corona Borealis. Now, if you want to observe the brightening of T Corona Borealis, it might be better if you get acquainted with the region and the stars of the constellation it's in. Once the event begins, you'll be able to compare its brightness against the other stars and observe the thing without using any fancy cameras. Now, a nova is a short-lived sudden explosion, involving a compact star as large as Earth or a bit bigger. The outburst comes from a white dwarf circling remarkably close to a regular star, so close that a stream of gas flows between them. This gas starts piling up until it creates a layer on the white dwarf's surface, and then it reaches a point where it detonates in a runaway thermonuclear explosion. According to astronomers, around 50 nova happen every year in our galaxy, but not all of them are noticed. NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope has observed several nova that occurred not far on the scale of the universe. They found out that each blast produces gamma rays. Those are the most energetic forms of light. Researchers also think that these gamma rays result from collisions among numerous shock waves, racing from the explosion site in a quickly expanding shell of debris. Now, after we've talked about nova, it's time to discuss something much more dramatic: supernovae. It's the largest explosion humans have ever seen. Each blast is a super powerful burst of a star. One kind of supernova is caused by the last hurrah of an extinguishing massive star. It happens to stars at least 5 times the mass of our Sun. Once they near the end of their lives, they go out with a ginormous bang. Huge stars burn incredible amounts of nuclear fuel at their core, producing tons of energy. It makes their centers immensely hot. Heat generates pressure, and this pressure keeps such stars from collapsing. But any star is in balance between two opposite forces. Its gravity attempts to squeeze the star into a teeny tiny ball, and the nuclear fuel burning at the core of the star produces powerful outward pressure. Now, when a giant star is running out of fuel, it starts cooling off. Its pressure drops and gravity wins. The star collapses. An enormous object that is millions of times the mass of Earth collapses within 15 seconds. No wonder this brisk process produces enormous shock waves. It makes the outer layers of the star explode. Eventually, an incredibly dense core is all that is left behind, besides a growing cloud of hot gas called a nebula. A black hole, the densest object in the universe, is the result of a supernova of a star around 10 times as massive as our Sun. Also, there's another type of supernova. It usually happens in systems where two stars orbit each other, and at least one of these stars is a white dwarf the size of our planet. If such a star collides with another, or pulls too much matter from its neighbor, it can explode into a supernova. Also, supernovae are often so bright they can outshine the combined light of entire galaxies for several days or even months. Supernovae aren't common. Astronomers think just a few of them occur within the century in galaxies like our home Milky Way. But since the universe contains an enormous number of galaxies, we can observe a few hundred supernovae every year outside our galaxy. Unfortunately, space dust blocks our view of most supernovae happening within the Milky Way. Betelgeuse, a late-stage red giant, exploded in 2019, but it wasn't the event we expected to see. This star is found in the constellation of Orion and is huge, so big that if we moved it to the center of our solar system, its outer edge would go way beyond the orbit of Jupiter. When Betelgeuse eventually nears its end, it will explode in a stunningly bright supernova visible on Earth even during the day. This explosion could happen as soon as tomorrow or as far-flung as hundreds of thousands of years from now, so don't hold your breath. But then, what was it in 2019? Astronomers noticed that the star was dimming. They decided it was the initial stages of the grand show. But instead, Betelgeuse went back to normal over the course of the next few months. Further analysis revealed that the star hadn't dimmed. It just looked like that because we had been observing it through a cloud of stellar debris. At the same time, the amount of light in the photosphere of Betelgeuse ramped up. It was like a massive explosion of material from the surface of the star. Events like this occur on the Sun all the time, especially when our star's activity is high. Bits of the Sun's surface get tangled up and cast off. That's what we call coronal mass ejections. They don't harm our planet, but they can mess with satellites and electrical equipment. Now, getting back to Betelgeuse, we've never seen such a huge mass ejection on the surface of a star before. It's a new phenomenon which we can observe directly and even see surface details with the help of the Hubble telescope. Astronomers say we're watching stellar evolution as it happens for the first time.
On June 17th, a rare astronomical event occurred in the night sky. 5 planets, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, and Mercury, aligned in one line. They rose slowly through the night, and different planets were visible at different times. Now, before I tell you when you can see a similar phenomenon next time if you miss this one, let's figure out what a planetary alignment is. This event is often called the Parade of Planets. You must have heard this term before. The most common definition of this phenomenon is when the planets line up in a single line, but in reality, it's not so easy to clearly describe what it means. There are 2 definitions of a planetary alignment: when the planets of the solar system gather on one side of the Sun at the same time, and when several planets appear close together in a small region of the sky, as seen from Earth. When the planets form a line, it may not look like a straight line because the planets are on different elliptical orbits. So, from one point of view, this line may seem to be straight. From another, it may look crooked. When 4 planets gather together in the sky, it's called a small parade. But if there are more planets, you're witnessing a big parade, like the one that occurred on June 17th. But not everyone supports this point of view. There's another classification. Some people believe that a small parade can be 3 planets gathering in a small area of the sky, This isn't a rare phenomenon. 3 planets can be simultaneously observed in the same part of the sky a few times a year. But big parades involving more than 4 planets occur much less frequently. There's also the Great or Full Planet Parade, which involves all planets of the solar system and sometimes even Pluto. But such events are extremely rare. In June, the alignment started with Saturn, which rose in the middle of the night near the Aquarius constellation. Neptune was the next, followed by Jupiter. Uranus appeared sometime later, not far from Jupiter, but a few degrees lower. And the final planet to rise in the sky was Mercury. It was low on the horizon and only visible an hour before sunrise. There was another parade of planets in March this year. Then, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Mars appeared in the night sky after sunset. But worry not, there will be another alignment this summer. It's going to take place in July. The best day to observe it will be July 22nd. So remember to mark this date in your calendar. Unfortunately, this planet alignment will only feature 3 planets: Mars, Venus, and Mercury. As for the next big parade of planets involving 5 or more planets, you'll be able to enjoy it in April 2024. Interestingly, not all parades of planets can be seen from Earth. We don't always see where planets line up in relation to Earth, which usually happens when Venus and Mercury take part in the parade. Since these planets are closer to the Sun than Earth, they're present in the sky either in the evening or in the morning, but never in the middle of the night. A parade of planets with their participation can occur, but they hide in the bright halo of our star, and it's very hard to see them. Some people believe that the alignment of several planets in one line can wreak havoc on Earth due to the added gravitational effect of these space bodies. But in reality, the distances between Earth and the other planets are so astronomically, pun intended, huge that they can't influence our home planet. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system and could probably have the greatest influence on us. But even this giant's gravity is 103 times weaker than that of the Moon. And the influence of the rest of the planets is even weaker. So, their combined gravitational pull doesn't lead to any noticeable consequences.
Scientists think there might be a huge onion chilling somewhere out there in space. Not an actual one, but it's something even crazier. These are stars stacked inside each other, layer upon layer. These fascinating objects, called Gravastars, could even be cousins of black holes. But most importantly, they might hold the key to understanding some of the most mysterious puzzles in the universe: dark energy, and even other dimensions. Let's start with gravity. Over a century ago, Albert Einstein helped us understand how gravity works. Turns out, it's not just something that pulls things on Earth and makes apples fall on Newton's head. It's much wilder. It's about warping the very fabric of existence itself. Let's say you toss a heavy ball, like a bowling ball, onto the middle of your bed. What happens to the sheets? They dip, don't they? They stretch and sag around the ball. Now, if you roll a smaller ball, like a marble, across the bed, it doesn't move in a straight line anymore. Instead, it starts circling the heavy ball, rolling closer and closer as if the heavy ball is pulling it in. That's gravity. But instead of bed sheets, we're talking about the fabric of space and time itself, or space-time for short. Heavy objects like planets and stars make dents in space-time, and moons, planets, or even light move along these dents. Gravity is the curve that tells them where to go. In that case, you can guess that black holes are like the ultimate heavy balls. The heaviest, in fact. The gravity is so strong, it shrinks them, making them smaller and smaller. So tiny, they could fit in the palm of your hand, but with the mass of several suns. Some of them are like holding over 40 billion solar masses in your palm. It's ridiculous, but they basically create a bottomless pit in space-time with insane gravity. This area around them, called the event horizon is the most horrifying thing ever. It's a point of no return. Once something gets there, it can never escape being eaten. When something falls past the event horizon, it can't climb back out, not even light. Which is why they seem like, well, black holes. But gravastars, they're something much weirder. Just like black holes, they're probably very compact. But instead of being tiny pits of endless gravity, they might have something wild at their core: dark energy. This is one of the universe's biggest mysteries. Dark energy, this invisible, mysterious something that seems to be pushing the universe apart faster and faster. It's like a polar opposite of gravity. While gravity tries to pull things together to slow down the expansion of the universe, dark energy is trying its hardest to make our world even bigger. Luckily, dark energy has been winning so far. Otherwise, we'd all be in some deep pit. But if we can explain the gravity with balls, then what exactly is dark energy? A force, an energy field. Something else? We have no idea. Scientists have seen its effects. They know that it's incredibly spread out everywhere, but they can't tell you what that thing even is. But if it's trapped inside of gravastars, maybe we'll finally discover the truth. This name stands for gravitational condensate stars. Gravastars were dreamed up by two physics professors, Powell Mazur and Emil Matola, in 2006. They tried to think what else besides black holes could happen when a massive star collapses on itself. That's how they created this alternative. Think of it this way. Gravity pulls everything inward, making super heavy objects like stars shrink in size. The more the star shrinks, the denser it gets, and its gravity grows stronger. After some point, it can cross a critical threshold and become a black hole. But what if there was dark energy inside to counteract this? At the core of a gravastar, there could be a region filled with false vacuum or dark energy. This energy would push outward, fighting the gravity. It's like the unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Thanks to this, the star core doesn't collapse into a black hole. Sounds wacky. We don't know what dark energy even is, so how can it fill up anything? But luckily, even if scientists can't fully explain dark energy, they still have strong mathematical models to check how it works in our universe. So, they decided to test this theory. Here's where things get even weirder. The new theory says that gravastars might not be simple lone objects. Instead, they could be stacked one inside another. Each one is like a layer with its own dark energy bubble inside, surrounded by a thin skin of matter. The outermost shell would hold a smaller gravastar inside it, and that one could hold an even smaller one, and so on. It's like a series of balloons, one inside the other. The air pressure in each one of them is stable, evenly spread out. Thanks to that, none of them deflate. They coexist without one popping or collapsing the others. In the case of gravastars, the air is dark energy, and the rubber is the shell of matter surrounding it. It sounds crazy, but it actually makes this whole idea more realistic. A single gravastar might have a very thin shell of matter, but the thicker they are, the more likely it is to exist in a stable way. And finally, the coolest part about them is that they could explain one of the biggest mysteries of our world: how universes are born. When a star collapses into a gravastar, the matter could theoretically implode through the center and create a new dimension. This would connect these objects to the Big Bang itself. Some scientists even speculate that dark energy could be the energy exchanged between our universe and a child universe that's created from a gravastar. Of course, these are all just speculations for now. But where are all those gravastars? And how do we test this? Well, physicists aren't sure either. They're more of a what-if thing than an actual object that they discovered. Those two professors just tried to imagine what would happen if gravity and dark energy worked together like this. For now, the LIGO, a big observatory which detects ripples in spacetime, hasn't found clear evidence of gravastars. Another problem is that gravastars would only be stable in specific cases. For example, if they spin too fast or their shell will be too thick, they might start to wobble or break apart eventually, though it could actually take billions of years. Plus, even if we don't see them right now, remember that this is exactly what happened to the black holes themselves. When Einstein published his groundbreaking theory of general relativity, another scientist, Carl Schwarzschild, took his equations and found a solution to them. And that's when he realized, if gravity becomes incredibly strong, the light wouldn't be able to escape, and this could create a sort of hole in space. Einstein even thought that this sounds too weird to be true. It took many years for us to confirm black holes' existence, and we finally took a photo of one just a couple of years ago. You might remember that blurry picture that blew up online? It was Sagittarius A star, an incredible supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy, Milky Way. So that's why scientists approach gravastars so seriously. And since all the math checked out, which means that these objects are actually possible in real life. Now, we just need to see if they're somewhere out there. What's interesting is that they'd probably look like regular black holes. They could emit high-energy radiation as they consume matter. They might even produce something called Hawking radiation, a type of energy that escapes from black holes. In other words, it would be nearly impossible to tell the difference. But gravastars have a small trick up their sleeve. If their shell is transparent to light, they might bend light in a slightly different way than black holes do. So maybe if they check the way light is bent around the mysterious object, they could spot the difference. And even if it turns out that gravastars don't exist in our reality, they're still valuable to science. They still taught us more about gravity, black holes, and the limits of relativity.
When watching a beautiful sunset over the sea and in the mountains, have you ever thought about what a sunset on Mars looks like? Or on Venus? Do they have the same reddish hues as sunsets on Earth? Not really. You see, sunsets look very different on different planets because of the composition of their atmospheres. Sunlight scatters off of the molecules that make up an atmosphere. This process is more effective at shorter wavelengths, which is the blue end of the visible spectrum. That's why we perceive the sky on our home planet as blue. But at sunset, light needs to travel longer distances through the atmosphere. That's why we see yellow and red hues. Now, let's move to Mercury and check what sunsets look like there. Both sunrises and sunsets on Mercury are views to behold. The sun seems 2.5 times larger in the sky over this planet than when you look at it from the surface of Earth. It also rises and sets twice during a Mercurian day. It rises, arcs across the sky, stops, moves back to the rising horizon, stops again, and restarts its way toward the setting horizon. Such bizarre maneuvers occur because Mercury rotates 3 times for every 2 orbits around the Sun, and its orbit is extremely elliptical. But if you expect to see a blazing sky and the hues of red, you'll be disappointed. Mercury has almost no atmosphere, so its sky is always black since light doesn't get scattered at all. Let's continue our journey and go to Venus. There, at sunset, a bright yellow fades into orange, brown, and then when the sun disappears, black. The planet rotates on its axis very slowly, so to see a sunset, you'd have to wait almost 1/16 times as long as you would on our home planet, half of a Venusian year. Mars is widely known as the red planet because of its rusty color caused by the presence of iron oxide in its soil. But sunsets on this planet would look surprisingly blue if you watched them from the surface of Mars. Fine dust in the atmosphere of the planet scatters light and makes the blue hues around the sun's area of the sky brighter. A Uranian sunset is azure, fading into royal blue with some hints of turquoise. The pretty colors come from the interaction of sunlight with the planet's atmosphere, which mainly consists of hydrogen, helium, and methane. These gases absorb the longer wavelength red portion of the light, and the shorter wavelength blue and green light gets scattered when photons bounce off the gas molecules and other particles in the atmosphere. In 2014, scientists working with data received by NASA's Cassini mission showed what a sunset on Titan could look like. The largest moon of Saturn is surrounded by haze and smog. It's the only satellite in the solar system with a measurable atmosphere, which mostly consists of nitrogen, around 95%, and methane, about 5%. High in the atmosphere of this moon, the nitrogen and methane get split apart by the ultraviolet light from the sun and high-energy particles accelerated by Saturn's magnetic field. The compounds produced during this process create a thick, orange-colored smog. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, these orange hues turn into a deep brown. Now look at this. It looks like a sunset on Earth, right? But it might actually be what it looks like on Saturn. We have to say might because, just like all images from space, we can rarely get the color right. They are neither true nor false. They just represent the physical processes underlying the subjects of the images. As for the photo of a sunset on Saturn, it's hard to say if it looks exactly like this before we get more scientific data.
Doctor, I can't understand what's going on. I feel dizzy and, how do I say it? I'm tilting. It didn't happen overnight. Like, I didn't wake up and couldn't stand straight. No, one day, I felt that my axis had shifted by 1 inch. Another day, it was 2 inches. And once, you won't believe it, it was 31.5 inches. That's alarming. What if I accidentally turned upside down and all my inhabitants fall off my surface? Ah, dear Earth. We ran some tests and are ready to explain an unfortunate combination of factors that has affected your axis. The last one will perhaps be the most unexpected and upsetting. It all started back in March 2011, when a devastating magnitude 9 earthquake struck off the coast of Japan. It was so powerful that not only did it shift Earth's axis, but it also shortened the length of the day. This earthquake displaced our planet's axis by approximately 6.5 inches and may have moved Japan's main island by about 8 feet. Like other similarly massive earthquakes, it also altered Earth's rotation speed. To make it easier, let's compare it to a spinning ice skater. When a skater pulls their arms close to their body, they spin faster by concentrating their mass near the axis of rotation. Something similar happens during the most powerful earthquakes. They shift Earth's mass closer to its rotational axis, causing it to spin faster and shortening the day length. The calculations showed that the Japanese earthquake sped up Earth's rotation by about 1.8 microseconds, which is about 1.8 millionths of a second. Not a big deal, but at the end of the day, every nanosecond counts. For comparison, the infamous Indonesian earthquake shortened the length of a day by 2.68 microseconds. It struck on December 26, 2004, at 0:58 UTC. The epicenter lay off the western coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. This powerful undersea earthquake triggered devastating tsunamis that swept across the Indian Ocean, causing widespread destruction and immense loss of life in countries like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. Even coastal areas as far as East Africa had severe damage. The Earth's magnitude, initially recorded at 9.0 on the Richter scale, was later adjusted to between 9.1 and 9.3, making it the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Asia. The faulting, that's when Earth's crust completely breaks and its parts slide past each other, lasted between 500 and 600 seconds, and it was the longest duration ever observed. The immense force of the quake caused the entire planet to vibrate by at least half an inch and triggered other earthquakes as far away as Alaska. All that immense energy the earthquake released caused subtle but quite measurable changes to Earth.
The shift in mass slightly changed the planet's rotation, shortening the day. It also caused a small wobble in Earth's axis from 1 to 2.4 inches toward 145° east longitude. So, when it comes to changes in Earth's rotation speed and axis, it's all about the redistribution of mass. This can happen naturally through disasters, but human activities can also trigger it. Take the Three Gorges Dam, for instance. This massive structure across the Yangtze River in China's Hubei province may seem to be an engineering triumph, but it's pretty ambiguous. Finished in 2012 after nearly 20 years, this massive dam is 7,660 feet long and 607 feet high. And yes, it is so big that it can affect the way our planet spins. Its reservoir is capable of holding 9.5 cubic miles of water, has enough mass to slightly alter the Earth's rotational inertia, slightly slowing the planet's rotation. According to NASA, the Three Gorges Dam reservoir could shift Earth's pole position by almost 1 inch and increase the length of a day by 0.06 microseconds. Dams aren't the only worry. If polar ice melts, water rushes into the oceans, hiking up sea levels, especially near the equator. This mass shift slows Earth's spin way more than dams do. You won't feel it day to day, but it can affect ultra-precise equipment, such as atomic clocks. To fix this, scientists suggested a negative leap second, making a minute 59 seconds, to balance Earth's spin changes. Okay, so you're thinking you've got nothing to do with all those tilts. You don't build dams, right? Bad news. If you take regular showers, you're part of it too. Every time you turn on the tap, you're affecting Earth's tilt just a tiny bit. Thing is, our planet is always shifting and adapting, so even small actions like using water can influence its orientation. Over the past 2 decades, groundwater pumping has caused the Earth's tilt to shift by 31.5 inches. This water redistribution is equal to about 0.24 inches of sea level rise. It turns out that among climate-related causes, groundwater redistribution has the largest impact on the drift of Earth's rotational pull. But what is groundwater? It's the water stored beneath the Earth's surface, filling the spaces in soil, sand, and rock. It comes from rain and other precipitation that seeps into the ground, collecting in underground reservoirs, aquifers. Unlike rivers and lakes, groundwater stays below the surface, acting like a natural water reserve. Thanks to it, we have a steady supply even during dry periods. Many people, especially in rural areas, rely on groundwater as their main source of drinking water. Farmers use it to irrigate crops, while industries depend on it for manufacturing and cooling systems. It sounds pretty harmless, doesn't it? How can something so useful cause our planet to shift? Well, a study covering data from 1993 to 2010 revealed that we've pumped about 2,150 gigatons of groundwater in that time. And this large-scale water removal has shifted the Earth's tilt and rotation. After we use groundwater, much of it eventually flows into the oceans, contributing to rising sea levels. In areas like Western North America and Northwestern India, people use a lot of groundwater, and it may have a connection to these shifts. Yikes, let's face it. All these findings are rather disturbing. But you know, understanding the impact of groundwater use is already a huge step in the right direction. Hey, I'm not done yet. This tilting issue isn't just about stuff happening on Earth. We also need to look at space. We've talked a lot about water, right? Well, you know that the moon has a big role in that. Its gravity is super important for forming tides and all that. So one more thing that affects our planet a lot is the gradual movement of the moon away from Earth. These two bodies interact gravitationally, which makes Earth's rotation slow over time, even though significant events like earthquakes occasionally speed it up temporarily. How did we figure it out? Glad you asked. Once, someone paid attention to ancient corals. After analyzing them, scientists realized that Earth had once rotated much faster. The thing is, corals grow by laying down thin layers of calcium carbonate. They do it daily, and variations reflect seasonal changes. By counting these layers, scientists have calculated the number of days in a year millions of years ago. They found that Earth had about 420 days per year 444 to 419 million years ago. But over time, the Moon's influence had caused Earth's rotation to slow. And now we only have 365 days in a year. I feel robbed, you know? At the moment, the Moon is moving 1.5 inches away from Earth each year. That's about the same speed at which your fingernails grow. Astronomers have figured it out with the help of special mirrors placed on the Moon during the Apollo missions. For over 50 years, researchers have been sending laser beams to these mirrors and measuring the time it took for the light to bounce back. In any case, dear Earth, at the moment, your condition isn't critical. As for your inhabitants, they won't fall off your surface. All thanks to your gravity, pulling them toward your center. Just don't switch it off, and everything's gonna be fine.
Earth's magnetic field hides a fascinating story. It turns out that it's getting weaker day by day. In fact, it's been doing so for the last 3,000 years. And if this trend continues, we could be in for some trouble within a millennium. What's the big deal? Well, picture this. Magnetic north becomes south, and vice versa. Pretty wild, right? When this happens, our planet's protective magnetic shield might weaken, allowing more cosmic rays to hit us. These high-energy particles from the universe can cause electronic malfunctions in our satellites and produce elements that could be harmful to us. The last time a polarity reversal occurred was between 772,000 and 774,000 years ago. Thankfully, humanity has some pretty smart people on the case who are investigating the history of Earth's magnetic field. They take cores of sediments from the seafloor and study the magnetization of fossils to figure out when these reversals occurred in the past and when they might happen again. Another group of researchers is studying the South Atlantic Anomaly, SAA, a vast region of Earth's magnetic field that is about 3 times weaker than the field at the poles. Using data from multiple satellites, they are trying to figure out what's causing the SAA and how it might change in the future. This could give us a glimpse into how a weakened magnetic field can affect our satellites and our planet. Sure, our generation won't be here to witness these changes, but it does make you wonder what that planet might look like upside down. Magnetically, that is. NASA's astronomers have also announced that in 4 billion years, the Milky Way galaxy is going to get a major glow-up. After a cosmic collision that will shake things up. I'm not talking about a small fender bender here, I'm talking about a titanic collision with our neighboring Andromeda galaxy. Humanity will have to hold on to its space helmet for this one, because the sun might get flung into a new region of the galaxy. However, our Earth and solar system probably won't be seriously affected. Sounds difficult to believe, so how come? NASA's Hubble Space Telescope did some hardcore measurements of Andromeda's motion. Although the galaxies will plow into each other, the stars inside each galaxy are so far apart that they won't collide with other stars during the encounter. However, the stars will be thrown into different orbits around their new galactic centers. According to simulations, our solar system will probably be tossed much farther from the galactic core than it is today. Set your telescopes aside. You don't need to start counting down the years. This event is likely scheduled in about 4 billion years, so chances for us to witness it are 0. Saturn is losing its rings. Thankfully, we won't be here to witness this sad event either. Apparently, the rings are being pulled into Saturn as a dusty rain of ice particles, all under the influence of Saturn's magnetic field. According to NASA's research, the ring rain is draining an amount of water products that could fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool from Saturn's rings every half an hour. The entire ring system will likely be gone in 300 million years. Scientists believe we should consider ourselves lucky to witness Saturn's ring system at all, as it seems to be in the middle of its lifetime. But if you think about it that way, that rings around planets are all temporary, there's a chance we've just missed out on the giant ring system of Jupiter, or those of Uranus and Neptune. These planets have only thin ringlets around them these days. Scientists have long debated whether Saturn was formed together with its rings or if the planet acquired them later in life. The new research favors the second scenario, indicating that they are unlikely to be older than 100 million years, while Saturn itself is around 4.5 billion years old. What caused the rings to appear in the first place? Well, there are a few theories. One of them suggests the rings could have formed when small, icy moons in orbit around Saturn collided. Perhaps their own orbits were messed up by a gravitational tug from a passing asteroid or comet. Who knows what humans might end up looking like in the future? It's unlikely we'll see any major changes in our lifetime. But let's take a journey to the future and ponder what we might evolve into. Will we become cyborgs with all sorts of cool machine implants? Or maybe we'll become a hybrid species of biological and artificial beings. To understand our future evolution, we gotta take a peek at our past. 1 million years ago, Homo sapiens didn't even exist. There were a few other similar species though, like the Neanderthal. Fast forward to today, and humans have become taller and sturdier. Maybe in the future we'll become smaller to conserve energy, as it's predicted that our planet will get more crowded. Speaking of crowded planets, living in these new conditions means we have to adapt, and fast. We're constantly interacting with lots of people, and remembering names is becoming a crucial skill. Luckily, technology might help us out with brain implants that will improve our memory. In the future, we might also have more noticeable technologies as part of our appearance. Imagine having an artificial eye with a camera that can read different frequencies of light. While predicting 1 million years into the future is pure speculation, we can use bioinformatics to make some predictions about the immediate future. Demographic trends suggest that urban areas will become more genetically diverse, while rural areas will become less diverse. And what about space? If we end up colonizing Mars, our bodies could change due to lower gravity. Maybe we'll have longer arms and legs, or even insulating body hair like our Neanderthal cousins. In the future, our moon is also going to witness some dramatic changes. We'll miss these ones too. In about 5 billion years, things are going to get really interesting in this corner of the universe. For now, the sun is chilling in its main sequence phase, just burning hydrogen like nobody's business. In the future, during the red giant phase, the sun is gonna puff up like a balloon until its atmosphere reaches out and engulfs our beloved Earth and Moon. Our natural satellite, which is already moving away from Earth, is gonna get warped around the sun's influence. Its orbit will get all wonky, and it'll end up closer to Earth during the new moon phase than during the full moon. And that's not even the worst part. If left alone, the moon would keep on moving away from Earth until it'll need almost 50 days to orbit us. As the sun continues with its own journey, its atmosphere will drag on the moon and cause its orbit to decay. Eventually, the moon will get torn apart into a stunning ring of debris circling Earth. We're talking about all its mountains, craters, and even the footprints and flags we left there, all scattered throughout the debris field. There's a chance the sun will shed enough mass to spare Earth and the moon from total annihilation. Or if we're really lucky, the sun will lose 20% of its mass and we'll be safe and sound. It's all just theory right now. We haven't seen a red giant star during this phase. The universe itself might go completely dark one day too. Scientists can't predict it with absolute certainty, but they can make some educated guesses. Right now, our universe is 13.77 billion years old, and it's still churning out new stars left and right. It's said that eventually, after about 1 trillion years, the last star will be born. That final star will be a little guy, a red dwarf, just a fraction the size of our sun. These stars are champs at living long lives, slowly sipping on hydrogen to keep their fusion reactions going. But even they can't last forever. Fast forward about 100 trillion years, and the last light will go out. The universe will be dark and lonely, but thankfully, we won't be here to watch it all fade away.
Hey, look up! There's a meteor shower happening right now! Okay, not really, but I made you look. If you're a fan of full moons, there's one coming up very soon. On February 27th to be exact. I really hope this video comes out in time. The moon will be lit up right in front of our eyes because it will be located on the opposite side of the Earth, where the sun is. It will help illuminate the moon, providing us with a night to remember. Take a good look at it. Doesn't it sort of resemble a huge snowball just hanging from the sky? Some native tribes in the northern hemisphere of our planet might have thought the same. That's why they used to call it the snow moon. You know, when it was big and full, like this. Okay, go ahead and grab a telescope now, because on the 9th and 10th of March, there are 3 planets that will line up for your aesthetical pleasure. Starting from top to bottom, you'll see Jupiter, then Saturn, and last but surely not least, Mercury. Now, depending on how good your telescope is, and if you've even got one, chances are you'll see some details of these 3 planets. You adjust your telescope a bit, and there it is, another planet. Almost like they're not thousands and thousands of miles away from each other. But that's not all. They'll be visible to the unaided eye too. This means you won't even need a telescope. Well, you'll probably see them like this, 3 bright white balls in the sky. Still astonishing though. You'll need to be looking at the southeast around half an hour before the sun rises, and voila, there they are. In the mood for a relaxing shower? How about a meteor shower instead? This time, you can keep your telescope safely stored, and you don't need to worry if you miss 1 or 2 of these showers, as there are quite a few happening this year. They're pretty evenly spread out too, and I don't mean the meteors. Those come close together. Grab your calendar and put a reminder on these months. You can choose from April, August, October, November, and December. Some months even have 2 showers instead of only 1, like October and November. Choose the month and day that works for you. Just check your calendar again. If you don't mind it being a bit chilly, just wrap yourself up in a blanket and hop in the back of your pickup truck. Then, all you have to do is stare up and enjoy the sky all night long, waiting for the shower to happen. Or, if you like to work by the clock, set up an alarm to wake you up in the middle of the night. That works too. Mercury's coming right at you! Watch out! Nah, don't fret. It's still right up there, just a bit closer than usual. That's because on the 17th of May, it'll be at its greatest eastern elongation. What this means is it will be easier to observe. Right after sunset, point your eyes to the skies in the west and try to look for the planet. This happens again during the 4th of July, but this time you'll have to look to the east. You might need a compass. Start your celebrations early in the morning, just before the sun rises, with a gorgeous view of Mercury, and of course a cup of coffee in your hand. If you still don't catch it then, try September 14th or October 25th. How about when the moon loses its natural white color? This happens just a few days after Mercury's first performance, on May 26th. It's called a total lunar eclipse. The moon will get gradually darker, as if someone was dropping dark red paint on it, until it finally reaches this sort of rusty red color that you can see on the screen. not all of us will be able to see this unless you're on a cruise in the Pacific Ocean or in the calm fields of Eastern Asia. If you live next to the Tokyo Tower, you're in luck. It'll be visible throughout the whole of Japan. And if you happen to live in the western part of North America, you'll also be able to see the moon shapeshift. Well, not quite shapeshift. It's not going to turn into a wolf or anything. That only happens if you're a werewolf, which I definitely am not. So it's more like a color shift. Still, on the moon, picture a massive black hole. Well, this next astronomical event kind of resembles that. On June 10th, during the annular solar eclipse, the moon will be the furthest it ever gets from Earth. While it's doing this, it ends up covering most of the sun, leaving just a bit of its curvature for us to see. If you happen to look at the sky during this time, what you'll see is a massive ring of light. Chances are you won't be able to tell that's the moon out there, since it'll be the same color as deep space, the absence of color, or just a very deep black. Oh, and that ring you're seeing? That's the sunlight. Okay, since we're talking about rings, I've got one for you. Saturn's ring. This planet is the full package. It's a planet, it has a ring, and get ready for this, it has 82 moons. It feels like every year a few new ones pop up out of nowhere. Anyway, during August 2nd, the planet will be at its closest point to Earth, and the sun will help us catch a good sight of it by brightly illuminating it. Not only will it be brighter than it ever is during the whole year, but it will also be visible all night long. This is the time to get that telescope ready again. A medium-sized one should do the trick. That is, if you want to see its rings and some of its moons, the ones that shine the brightest. Another planet that's coming closer is Jupiter, this time on August 19th. The same thing that happened to Saturn will happen to it. The sun will shine bright on its big planet face. The only difference is that this time, if you have a good pair of binoculars lying around, you'll be able to see the planet's 4 largest moons. Although they'll look like tiny dots, but now you know what they really are. Okay, so you've been thinking about those meteor showers I mentioned earlier. Well, this one is the best there is. It's called the Perseids meteor shower, and it almost looks like the sky is a pitching machine, except it's pitching meteors. During this particular shower, you might even be able to observe up to 60 meteors per hour. They're very bright too. Look at them go! Zoom! There goes another one. The best days to get cozy, sit on the grass, and just lie there looking at the sky is during August 12th and 13th. Usually, when these 2 days come around, the sky's dark and clear, perfect for a meteor shower. Picture a slightly red moon. That's called the partial lunar eclipse, and it happens during the 19th of November. This same red moon will get darker and darker as it moves through Earth's shadow. It won't be visible to everyone though. Here's a globe. Let's mark the places where you can see this partial lunar eclipse. First we got Eastern Eurasia, then Japan. The Pacific Ocean's included in this list too, but unless you got a boat, you're likely not going to be there. Then we've got North America, Mexico, Central America, and lastly, some parts of Western South Africa. Grab a hold of your eclipse glasses and get ready for this last one. It's the last solar eclipse of the year. This one in particular is the best one to catch, as the moon will block the sun for almost 2 minutes. You'll be able to see the almost ghost-like sun's corona, also known as its outer atmosphere. The sad part is, you'll have to be in Antarctica or the South Atlantic. Just be careful out there. I heard it gets a little chilly.
This signal had been traveling through space for 200 million years, and now, when it finally reached Earth, it brought a fascinating story with itself. It might even help us solve an 18-year-long mystery. We caught this one in 2022. It was such an intense burst of radio waves. Even though it lit up for a fraction of a second, it outshined entire galaxies. At first, the signal hasn't caught attention because we've seen similar things before. It was a fast radio burst, or FRB for short. These guys have been a mystery for years now, all because we have no idea where they come from. Now, FRBs are brief booms of energy coming to us from all over outer space. They're barely catchable, lasting up to 3 seconds. But they're also very hard to miss, because their power is absolutely unimaginable. One little burst can release as much energy as the sun does in an entire day. They've been a puzzle for us ever since 2007. We've caught over 1,000 of those signals from literally everywhere, from our own galaxy to places as far as 8 billion light-years away. And none of them revealed where they're coming from or what they mean. At least we know they're not from extraterrestrial creatures. They have to be coming from something that happens nearly constantly, and this recent signal might finally help us learn the truth. It lasted about 2 milliseconds, and it wasn't particularly bright. But when researchers took a closer look, they realized they can actually finally track this one. They got to it immediately. They saw that the burst came from a galaxy about 200 million light-years away. In other words, this is exactly how long these radio waves have been traveling to us. The signal flickered in a weird pattern. This is what we call a scintillation. When light or radio waves travel to us, they can stumble upon unexpected crazy clouds of gas. The particles in light waves start bouncing off this gas, which disturbs the signal a little bit. So when we received it, it was a bit weird and distorted, kind of like me. But this exact cloud was what helped us locate where exactly this signal came from. Turns out, it came from a neutron star. Now these are some fascinating guys. They're the remnants of stars that live fast and burn bright. When a powerful star like this, much larger than our Earth, runs out of fuel, it can no longer support its weight. So it goes away with an insane spectacle called a supernova. During its last moments, its core collapses under its own super-strong gravity, and this creates one of the densest objects in the universe. Again, a lot like me. Hey, what can I say? For curiosity, let's compare it to osmium, the most dense element on our planet. If you had a small cube of osmium, it would weigh around 0.8 pounds. That's already pretty heavy, and it means that 1 cubic foot of osmium would weigh a shocking 1,410 pounds. That's like an average cow. Now, just try to guess how much a small cube of neutron star would weigh. Wrong. It would be a horrifying 7 billion tons per one little cube. Don't even think about holding it in your hand. That thing would warp the fabric of reality around it. It's kind of like trying to imagine Mount Everest being squeezed into a tiny ball. Hard to even imagine. So even though they're so heavy, these stars are surprisingly small, only about 6 miles in radius. That's like a city size, and it would still weigh more than our sun. But if that's not enough horror for you, the neutron star we're talking about wasn't your regular one. It was a magnetar. Now, magnetar is a rare type of neutron star. When a neutron star is born, there's only a 10% chance that it will become one of those guys. It can happen if, while the star is collapsing, its magnetic field grows wildly stronger. The spin is rapid, the insides are going wild, and boom! We've got a magnetic field 1 trillion times stronger than Earth's. More than that, these are among the most extreme magnetic fields in the entire universe. They can literally rip atoms apart. Which is exactly what they do. They just rip everything apart. So they end up being surrounded by a super hot, electrically charged soup of particles called plasma. The magnetic field is going wacky, twisting, and bending the plasma as it sees fit. And this all just ends up as an ultra-hot party. Everyone is constantly colliding, scattering, and being absorbed. Not the best place for a hangout. Now, back to our main character. The magnetar in our story also had a plasma soup and a terrifying invisible field surrounding it. And this is exactly where that mysterious signal came from. A signal was born somewhere in that place, at a distance of 6,200 miles away from the magnetar. Sounds like a lot, but that's a distance shorter than a flight from New York to Singapore. But this is very weird, because how can a radio burst even escape a place like that? Now, usually they'd end up being blocked or absorbed. Most often, radio waves end up hanging out there like in a cage. This one, however, managed to break free somehow. which means that something happened that punched through the plasma. Energy somehow goes goofy, twists and reshapes itself in such ways that it starts releasing radio waves. Now, in any case, this means that FRBs most likely come from neutron stars and various types, like magnetars or pulsars. Recently, astronomers made a new amazing telescope called CHIME, the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment, a mouthful. This one detects FRBs literally every day. FRBs are full of surprises in general. In the same year, we discovered an FRB with periodic peaks lasting over 3 seconds, much longer than typical bursts. This one could also come from a neutron star. But if it was just neutron stars, we wouldn't probably receive them all that often. It looks like these signals are very diverse and might actually be born from all sorts of places, like near black holes. So there are some other theories about their origin. For example, they could come from 2 stars smashing into each other. What could be more epic than that? A collision of 2 stars would release unimaginable energy, and they destroy each other completely. Uh-oh. Some astronomers think they could explain FRBs, but of course, that's not something that happens often at all. Also, FRBs sometimes repeat. Most of them flash once and disappear, but sometimes they almost flicker, like the one we discussed. Some of them even follow very precise patterns. For example, one well-known repeater follows a 16-day cycle. It goes crazy for about 4 days and then goes quiet for 12 days before starting again. This one is hard to explain even with neutron stars. There has to be some unique astrophysical mechanism at play. Maybe something that orbits something else. But anyway, a star's collision would only explain signals that flash once and never again. Another possibility is the blitzar. It's a goofy name for a very dramatic idea: a neutron star turning into a black hole. Once again, an event like that unleashes a huge burst of radio waves. But, again, an occasion like that would be incredibly rare, and the signals aren't supposed to repeat. Black holes themselves are a pretty good option, though. They're central to many FRB theories. Could these bursts come from a neutron star falling into a black hole? Or from a collapsing black hole itself? Maybe even dark matter interacting with a black hole? Hey, who knows? Let's just throw all the ideas in there. Of course, the thing that everyone's most excited about is extraterrestrial civilization. Maybe not all of these bursts, but at least some of them could be signals from our intelligent neighbors. But like we said, that's very unlikely, considering that the signals come from all over the sky and many different distances. Also, almost all of them are the same, and that would be super hard and weird from an intelligent civilization to try and reproduce. Though who knows what else we might discover in the future. We still can't find the source of the mysterious signal we've been receiving since 2018. We receive it every 22 minutes and nothing can explain this. Some scientists even believe it could be coming from another civilization we haven't met yet. This strange radio signal wasn't found by a scientist on a serious mission. It was actually discovered by a college student just doing a regular project for school. Tyrone O'Doherty, an undergrad student at Curtin University in Australia, was sifting through old data of the southern sky. He was looking for any weird blinking radio signals. He finally stumbled upon one from 2018 that seemed to shoot radio waves towards Earth like a lighthouse beam. Excited about his find, Tyrone shared it with his mentor, radio astronomer Natasha Hurley-Walker. She dove into researching this signal, hoping for a breakthrough. But despite checking different frequency data, they hit a dead end. But then, Natasha spotted a pattern. The signal repeated every 18 minutes. This was huge. But just as they were gearing up to study it further, poof! The signal vanished after only 3 months, leaving them with nothing. Not giving up, Natasha and her team scanned the skies again, desperate for a clue. Months passed, but nothing turned up. They were ready to give up. and then suddenly, a new signal popped up. This one kept blinking for 5 minutes, then it disappeared. And then it came back exactly 22 minutes later. The main question was if that signal was related to an 18-minute one. To figure it out, Natasha went back to the old radio data from that area. As they dug deeper, they realized that yes, and these signals aren't anything new. They've been beaming towards Earth for 35 years. Back in 1988, Indian and American telescopes had caught them, but they got buried under tons of other data. This was great news for space explorers because it meant they could now calculate how far away this mysterious object was. After doing the math, they figured out it was incredibly far, even on a space scale, 15,000 light-years from Earth. Now, the only thing left to uncover was what exactly this object was. Walker and his team started comparing it to all the known radio-emitting objects out there. Yet its source remains a mystery. The signals still pop up every 22 minutes on NASA screens, always ending with a frustrating match not found message. The scientists called it J183910. Some think that the signal might come from some extraterrestrial beings. Maybe it's the signal that SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been waiting for. This project has been working for over 50 years, trying to find any evidence of life beyond Earth. They also scan the skies for radio waves, laser pulses, and other mysterious signals. So maybe it's a way for extraterrestrial folk to communicate their location. While that idea may sound exciting, we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. First, we don't have solid proof for that. Before any concrete evidence, it's just speculation. And also, there are other more plausible explanations. Most likely it comes from a natural phenomenon, and there are a couple of theories for that. The first one is the pulsar theory. Imagine a huge star in space much bigger than our Sun. Sometimes these big stars finish their life journeys in a spectacular event called a supernova. When this happens, the star's core collapses, becoming super compact, as if you're squeezing all the stuff from that star into a tiny space. That tiny, super-dense core is called a neutron star. Some of these neutron stars are extra special. We call them pulsars. They get their name because they seem to pulse with energy, like a space lighthouse. These pulsars have incredibly strong magnetic fields, much stronger than what you'd find on Earth. They're like enormous magnets in space. Because of this, they shoot out beams of energy. They're also spinning super fast, so these beams of energy seem to pulse on and off as they spin around. Now, the strange signal we detected seems to have similarities with pulsars, but not quite. Pulsars usually have a predictable lifespan and slow down over time, eventually stopping their radio signals. In contrast, our mysterious signal is quite persistent and is blinking beyond what's expected for pulsars. So, maybe it's not a typical pulsar, or not a pulsar at all. There's also a magnetar theory. Now, a magnetar is another type of neutron star. They're like supercharged versions of pulsars, with even stronger magnetic fields and slightly longer pulsating periods. Maybe this is what causes our signal's intense persistence. However, when we plotted the data, we also realized the signal didn't match the magnetar's vibes either. Magnetars not only send out radio waves, but also powerful X-rays because they're so energetic. But the signal we received was only sending out radio waves. So we figured it's not a pulsar and not a magnetar. The signal's behavior is very strange and suggests an unnatural source. This means there might be something in the universe that scientists haven't fully explored yet. And there is a space object that we don't know much about. The final theory is the so-called dwarf pulsar. Sounds a little dopey to me. Couldn't help myself. Now, a dwarf pulsar is like a star that blinks with light flashes, similar to pulsars, but it takes longer for each blink. Usually, white dwarfs are the leftovers from smaller stars. They don't blink because their magnetic field isn't as strong as pulsars, But when a white dwarf becomes pretty hefty, almost the mass of our Sun, it gets super dense and starts pulsating with a strong magnetic field, just like pulsars. They have a cool quirk. White dwarfs are made of electrons, not neutrons like pulsars. When these charged electrons start dancing with the magnetic field, they shoot out periodic light flashes, which happen every 100 to 1,000 seconds. As you remember, our signal has a period of 22 minutes, 1,320 seconds. A bit longer than the usual white dwarf pulsars, but it's much closer to the truth. So far, this sounds like the most plausible explanation. But even this theory isn't fully confirmed yet. This just shows how much there is in the universe that we're still figuring out. For example, fast radio bursts, another mysterious type of signal we've been detecting. They're like quick, intense bursts of energy in the form of radio waves. They have a ton of energy. FRBs are so powerful that sometimes they can be brighter than entire galaxies. Now, imagine this. They release as much energy in a few milliseconds as our Sun does in 3 whole days. Wow! These bursts happen all over the sky with huge frequencies, although some have been detected with lower frequencies. Every day, we catch around 10,000 random FRBs in the sky. Some of them repeat, but most happen once and disappear forever. Unfortunately, most of them only last for a fraction of a second, and by the time their energy reaches us, it's 1,000 times weaker than a mobile phone signal from the moon. This is why, despite their brightness, there's still a lot we don't understand about them. We're still trying to figure out what causes these FRBs. They could be coming from different sources, like already mentioned magnetars, colliding stars, or even merging galaxies or white dwarfs. As these bursts travel through space, they pick up information about the cosmic environments they pass through, like interstellar gas clouds. It's very unlikely that FRBs are some messages from extraterrestrial beings, though. Not only because there are thousands of them every day all across the sky, but also because we know that the sources of these bursts must be incredibly energetic themselves. Our neighbors would have to have equipment stronger than entire galaxies for that. But the bottom line is, while all these signals are fascinating, there's still a ton to learn about them.
Remember that mysterious WOW signal astronomers have been wondering about for the past 40 years? Well, buckle up, because we have some interesting news about it. For those of you who may not know, the WOW signal was a radio sound detected back in 1977 by an astronomer while working at the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio. The signal was so unique and intense that the man scribbled WOW in the margin of the data printout, and the name stuck ever since. But what made the WOW signal so special? Well, for one thing, it was never detected again. Despite astronomers pointing their telescopes to that same region of space numerous times over the years, the signal never reappeared. It was like a cosmic one-hit wonder. Now, for decades, scientists have been trying to decipher the mystery behind the WOW signal. Was it a message from an intelligent civilization living outside our planet? Or was it just some random cosmic noise? Years ago, one study claimed that the WOW signal was caused by a comet named 266P Christensen. It was passing through that same region of space back in 1977, and its hydrogen could have emitted a radio signal that just happened to be in the same frequency as the WOW signal. This information was soon dismissed by specialists, who claimed comets don't emit such radio waves. Another theory concerning the WOW signal was that it might have come from a sun-like star. This was based on the idea that the signal was indeed caused by a natural phenomenon, not by little green creatures wandering in space. This star is found in the constellation of Sagittarius at a distance of 1,800 light-years. Now, this distance might sound like a long way, but in terms of the vastness of space, it's practically next door. It was promising because it had some interesting features too. It was very similar to our Sun in terms of temperature, luminosity, and size. Sadly, after studying this sun-twin star a bit more, scientists couldn't pinpoint the WOW signal to it with complete certainty. There may be other stars in the same area that could have emitted the signal. We just don't know for sure. So, what does this mean for the search for life outside our planet through the WOW signal? Well, it means that we're back to square one for the most part. We still don't know what caused the WOW signal, and we don't know if it was caused by an intelligent civilization or a natural phenomenon. One of the ways that astronomers are searching for intelligent life in the universe is by looking for technosignatures. These are signs of technology that we can detect from here on Earth, which could indicate advanced activity in space. They couldn't be explained by natural phenomena. Some examples of technosignatures include laser emissions, radio signals, or signs of megastructures. Today's outer space playlist doesn't end with the WOW signal. Get ready to shake those hips and groove to the beat, because we're about to discover black holes and the funky sounds they make. Now you may be wondering, do black holes make sounds? Well, it looks like they do, and it's like a cosmic symphony. First off, let's talk about what a black hole is. It's a spot in space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape its pull. Think of it as a cosmic vacuum cleaner that sucks up everything in its path. Even though black holes don't emit any light, they can still give off some serious vibes. Scientists have been studying these vibes, or sounds, for years, using special instruments to pick up on their cosmic tunes. So, what does a black hole sound like? Well, imagine a bass guitar mixed with the sound of a giant burp. Weird, I know. This sound from black holes comes from the gas and dust swirling around them. As the material gets sucked in, it heats up and emits X-rays, which can be detected by our instruments. These X-rays are like the notes in a song, and they can tell us a lot about what's going in and around the black hole. But here's the craziest part. Scientists have found that different black holes have their unique tunes. It's like they have their own cosmic DJ spinning tracks for the universe to groove to. After studying colliding black holes, scientists have figured out that some are super chill and mellow, while others are wild and crazy with beats that'll make your head spin. Who knows, maybe one day we'll figure out a way to tap into that cosmic beat and use it to power our spaceships. If we can turn sound waves into electricity here on Earth, who's to say we can't do the same thing in space? The mysterious bloop sound baffled scientists for ages too, only this one came from a completely different location, from deep within our Earth's waters. Picture this, you're chilling on your couch minding your own business, when suddenly you hear a loud, eerie noise coming from your speakers. Well, that's sort of what happened to a group of scientists back in 1997 when they stumbled upon the infamous bloop sound. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bloop? That's not very scary. But let me tell you, this sound was no joke. It was a deep, low-frequency noise that lasted for about a minute. And it was picked up by underwater microphones nearly 3,000 miles apart. Naturally, the scientists were like, what on earth is making this noise? Fast forward a few years and the internet is overwhelmed with theories about what could have caused the bloop. Some people thought it was a giant sea monster, while others speculated it was some sort of weird civilization spaceship lurking in the depths of the ocean. And of course, some believed it was just a glitch in the recording equipment. Despite all the speculation, the mystery of the bloop remained unsolved for years. But back in 2005, scientists finally revealed the true culprit behind the spooky sound. Turns out, it was just an iceberg. When icebergs break off from glaciers and float around the ocean, they can make some pretty weird noises. And the bloop was nothing more than the sound of an iceberg cracking and shifting around. Just because we know the cause of the bloop doesn't mean it's any less fascinating. In fact, it's pretty amazing that a sound like that could travel thousands of miles and still be audible. Plus, the fact that it took scientists years to figure out what caused it, it just goes to show how much we still have to learn about our planet. No playlist is complete without a sad, heartbreaking song. And speaking of that, have you heard of the loneliest whale in the world? It's a fascinating story that starts back in 1989, when American specialists were looking for submarines. Instead of submarines, though, they stumbled upon a whale that had a uniquely high-pitched voice, which earned it the title of the loneliest whale. Why is it called the loneliest whale? Well, most blue whales speak at frequencies between 10 and 40 Hz, but this whale's voice is at a frequency of 52 Hz, which is a low bass note to human ears. Since it has a different voice than other blue whales, some scientists believe that it was unable to communicate with other whales. It's also believed that this whale may be a hybrid whale, with one parent from a different whale species. This could cause a different body shape and a different call, which could explain its unique voice. Recent research suggests that the loneliest whale may not be so lonely after all. Many peculiar whale calls have been detected, and some studies suggest that groups of whales living in particular regions have distinct dialects of whale songs that often differ in frequency. To add to the intrigue, later recordings have found that the loneliest whale is now changing its tune. The whale's call has been getting deeper for several years. Maybe it's not so lonely after all and has some whale friends to hang out with.
Voyager 1, which has been traveling through interstellar space for more than 45 years and is trailing a long gray beard by this time, not really. It suddenly began to send strange signals to Earth. Even more bizarre, there are no signs that the probe has broken or anything. Scientists from NASA are desperately trying to find the reason. So, what's happened exactly? First of all, let me tell you a bit more about Voyager 1 and its long journey. Voyager 1 is an American space probe. Scientists from NASA sent it into space on September 5, 1977. Voyager's goal was to explore the outer planets of our solar system, namely Jupiter and Saturn. Initially, scientists assumed that the mission would take about 5 years. The joke's on them. The probe exceeded all expectations. Not only did it fulfill its mission, but it's still working for much longer than expected. Voyager 1 has been wandering around space for more than 45 years. It's hard to estimate what Voyager 1 has done for science. Firstly, it successfully sent a lot of photos of Jupiter and Saturn to Earth. By the way, you can even check out these photos yourself. All of them are published on the NASA website. Thanks to Voyager, we also discovered several new moons of Jupiter and a previously unknown system of its rings. We learned that Jupiter's famous red spot is actually a giant superfast storm. And after leaving Neptune's orbit behind, Voyager also sent a lot of important data about interstellar plasma. So Voyager 1 successfully proved to scientists how useful it was. After that, it happily headed for its next goal, the Kuiper Belt and the heliosphere. The Kuiper Belt is a ring of icy bodies that extends from Neptune to a distance of approximately 50 AU from the Sun. It's kind of similar to the asteroid belt, but about 20 times wider and 100 times heavier. And the heliosphere is an area around the Sun where the pressure of the solar wind is balanced with the pressure of interstellar gas. Yeah, I know, it sounds like some hard scientific stuff. Just keep in mind that this data really helps us understand the universe as a whole. So, this is Voyager's last task, to tell us more about interstellar space. The probe has already sent us more than 60 frames for a mosaic of the solar system from a distance of over 4 billion miles from Earth. Scientists use these frames to make a big colored picture. The photo was called the pale blue dot, and you've probably already guessed what that dot is. Yep, that's what our Earth looks like through Voyager's eyes. This photo clearly shows how tiny we really are, and how precious and fragile our planet is. But Voyager 1 also has another, even more important mission, to tell other civilizations about us humans. You might have heard about the famous Voyager Golden Records. People created many audio and video files and added them to these records. There are a few sections. The first one contains hello in 55 languages, including ancient and extinct ones. Almost 80% of the recordings are different musical pieces, like Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and Stravinsky. folk music from different countries and ages, and a bit of the blues, like famous songs by Louis Armstrong and Chuck Berry. The remaining 20% of the recordings contain different human voices, sounds of nature and animals, as well as 116 images encoded as audio signals. There's also recordings of speeches by Kurt Waldheim, a former UN Secretary General, and Jimmy Carter, a former US President. These are just some friendly messages. In addition to the records, scientists also packed a needle for playing them. Don't worry, they also left a simple drawing that showed how to use all this stuff and how to translate the sounds into pictures. They added Earth's coordinates, which they created using a pulsar map. It shows the position of the Sun in the Milky Way. The record was packed in an aluminum case and covered with gold to protect it against radiation and cosmic dust. Carrying this record, Voyager 1 set off on its long journey, and it has already traveled quite a distance, I'd say. Right now, Voyager 1 is 154 astronomical units away from us. That's about 14.5 billion miles. This makes it the most remote human-made object. Initially, this title belonged to the Pioneer 10 mission, but Voyager overtook it in 1998. What a bargain for NASA! It's way beyond its best-by date. Voyager 1 is actually so cool that it even overtook its twin brother, Voyager 2, which, by the way, had been sent into space 2 weeks earlier. Voyager 1 moves at a speed of 9.7 miles per second. That's 35,000 miles per hour. Even the fastest sports car in the world travels at a speed of only 305 miles per hour. So it's hard to imagine the speed of Voyager. Anyway, at the moment, Voyager is heading to the borders of the Oort cloud. That's the name of a hypothetical layer of icy objects surrounding the solar system. Astronomers haven't confirmed its existence yet, but they're almost sure it's there. After all, even black holes were only a theory not so long ago. Unfortunately, Voyager 1 won't return back to the solar system. It'll keep in touch with Earth at least until 2025, but eventually we'll lose the connection with it for good. In 300 years, it'll reach the borders of the Oort cloud. And in 30,000 years, I won't be around then, it'll finally leave the solar system. And if nothing happens to it along the way, in another 10,000 years, Voyager 1 will approach red dwarf star Gliese 445 in the Giraffe constellation. In the future, the probe will probably keep wandering around the Milky Way galaxy. And now, let's finally discuss the mysterious signals part. So, what happened? Well, a rather unusual thing. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which monitors and controls both Voyagers, reported this problem in May 2022. Our veteran spacecraft suddenly began sending strange data to Earth. The whole situation puzzles even engineers from NASA. Now, I bet you're thinking, come on, the thing just probably broke down or something. But the truth is that Voyager 1 is totally fine. It works as usual, receives and carries out commands from Earth, and collects and sends scientific data. But the readings of the AACS, which stands for Attitude and Articulation Control Subsystem, don't show what is actually happening to Voyager anymore. This system supports the orientation of the probe in space and helps it keep in touch with Earth. So, basically, the signals mean that the probe's orientation in space is messed up. But scientists claim this is not the case. They know that the source of the antenna signal remains in the same position relative to Earth as planned. The problem hasn't triggered any of the onboard fall protection systems. The probe hasn't even entered safe mode. So, what in the world, or universe, is going on? Suzanne Dodd, the head of the project, says that the problem is not actually that unexpected. After all, Voyager 1 is already 45 years old. The expert admits that what's happening to the probe remains a mystery to them. They don't know exactly where the incorrect data is coming from, and it's unclear how this will affect the operation of Voyager. She adds, though, that it's not that surprising, considering that the probe is in interstellar space. There's a very high level of radiation there. No spacecraft has ever reached that point before. Scientists from NASA say they'll keep closely monitoring the data coming from Voyager 1 until they figure out the problem. If they find it, the management team will try to fix it. Otherwise, the team will have to adapt to the new conditions. It might not be enough just to understand the problem, though. It takes as much as 20 hours and 33 minutes to receive the signal from Voyager, and it takes the same amount of time to respond to it. Well, at least the second spacecraft, Voyager 2, is totally fine, even though it's also currently in interstellar space at a distance of 12 billion miles from Earth. Anyway, we can only wait for news and hope that the problem will be resolved. I actually wonder how much longer can Voyager 1 last? Will it be able to fly to the borders of the Oort cloud in 300 years? What do you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments.
The dark days are mysterious natural phenomena that have occurred only a few times in the history of humankind. We can write them off as eclipses or just some weather events, but in reality, they're very creepy, and we have no idea why they happen. So, what are these dark days anyway? What's so strange about them? Let's try to find out. The sun is off. What are we gonna do? That's what the residents of Yamal, Siberia asked meteorologists on September 18, 1938. In the morning, instead of going to work, they all gathered at the weather station. They were waiting for answers. All because on that day, they observed something inexplicable, an eclipse which they later nicknamed the Black Day. And neither astronomers nor meteorologists can explain what happened back then. Here's how one of them described this event. At 8:30 a.m., we noted a decrease in light. At the same time, the color of the clouds began to acquire a yellowish-brown, sometimes red-brown hue. By 9 a.m., the lighting had changed dramatically. It was as if you were looking at the world through a dark light filter. The brown tones of the clouds intensified. By 10:30 a.m., the sky and Earth didn't differ from each other in lighting and color. Everything seemed homogeneous, black, absolutely devoid of light. Pretty creepy, right? And that's not all. The city was also plunged into complete radio silence. Meteorologists couldn't even contact the authorities, and local residents were unable to set up any stations. Everyone was in the dark, both literally and figuratively. Meteorologists decided to try and launch several flares. The flares soared into the air towards the heavy dark clouds hanging over the city and disappeared. The clouds were so dense that the flares were completely invisible. At the same time, the weather was perfectly fine. Everything was quiet. And this black silence lasted for about an hour. After that, the Black Day ended as unexpectedly as it began. Even more baffling, those strange clouds left literally no trace. No rain, no dust, nothing. After that event, researchers found out that the Black Day had spread for 125 to 155 miles around. They also learned that the dark band was moving from west to east. After passing through the southern part of the Yamal Peninsula, it headed on for a while and then disappeared completely. Yamal isn't the only place where this phenomenon occurred. In fact, similar eclipses have been happening in different parts of Earth for many years. For example, in New England, on May 19, 1780, people there witnessed an event that was later called New England's Dark Day, but it lasted not one day, but several. A few days before this event, the sky turned yellow, and on May 19th, in broad daylight, it suddenly turned black. Here's what one of the witnesses, Joseph Plum Martin, later told the press. It was very dark. People had to light candles in their houses to carry on with their usual business. The night was as uncommonly dark as the day was. The smell of soot reigned in the air. Nearby rivers were covered with a thin layer of ash. When the real night came, people noticed through the clouds that the moon had turned dark red. Only a couple of days later, people were finally able to see stars through the veil of clouds. And then, everything suddenly returned to normal. No one had any idea what had happened. 22 years later, on June 2, 1802, a schooner named El Dorado sailed across the Pacific Ocean. Suddenly, they were overtaken by complete darkness. There was no storm, and the ocean was completely calm, but the whole sky was covered with black clouds. These clouds dissipated after half an hour and left no trace. And again, 74 years later, One of the dark waves happened in Wisconsin on March 19, 1886. It was 3 p.m., and this time, the wave was very short. It lasted only 5 to 10 minutes. A sudden night fell on the city. Frightened horses were neighing, and terrified people were running around, trying to find a place to hide. When everything calmed down, local newspapers reported that the wave passed from west to east. There was no solar eclipse, no winds or hurricanes, nothing that could cause the darkness over the city. And finally, once again, it happened on December 2nd, 1904, in Memphis. Or rather, that's what rumors claim, since there's no scientific evidence of this event. It was clear and cold dawn over Bluff City. People were doing their usual Friday morning chores. Then, around 9 in the morning, without any warning, the sun suddenly disappeared from the sky. It took only a minute for the bright sunny day to turn into pitch darkness. People interrupted their work, and children in schools were completely terrified. And just like in previous cases, the weather was perfectly calm. It lasted for about half an hour and then suddenly ended. A little later, following a mysterious eclipse, a ferocious storm hit the city. So, what's going on? All these strange cases can surely be explained scientifically, right? Well, actually, scientists don't have a definite answer. All these events are very similar, but we don't have a single explanation that could cover them all. Let's take a look at some theories. The first thought that comes to mind, it's probably a partial or total eclipse. But no, this is not the case. There were no eclipses on those days, and even if we consider this theory, before any eclipse, the sky darkens gradually. Eclipses themselves only last a couple of minutes, certainly not a few hours or even days. Also, unlike eclipses, these events were local to specific cities. Well, maybe it's some other astronomical event. Some scientists believe that during the event on Yamal, a band of cosmic dust touched Earth, but later they found out that no astronomical bodies approached the planet that day. Alright, any other ideas? Forest fires could be the reason. When a large area of forest is burning at the same time, a column of air can rise to great heights, like 3 to 4 miles. These airflows carry ash and other burnt stuff to different places, and since all these things are so high in the sky, they simply freeze there and turn into something resembling black clouds. That was probably the case for New England. At that time, a wave of forest fires broke out in Canada. They could easily spread through the north of the US. Also, just look at this description. Yellowed sky, the smell of soot, ash on the water. Everything sounds logical, but this theory of fires only works for the event in New England. What about the other cases? Where would you find a forest fire in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, for example? Alright, moving on. Scientists tried to explain the story from Memphis by saying it could be a hurricane, but the black cloud swept through the city before the storm, not during or after it. And it wasn't some kind of typical storm cloud, it was full-fledged night darkness. So what's really going on? Now, meteorologists call this phenomenon a local decrease in the transparency of the atmosphere. Unlike solar eclipses, this darkness is denser. It also covers only a small area. The transparency of the atmosphere is its ability to let through radiation and light. It's basically, how well can I see distant objects? Everything can get dark and blurry, for example, because of the dust in the air, volcanic eruptions, fogs, and so on. So, according to this theory, dark days are just an extreme drop in the transparency of the atmosphere. But it's still strange. If that's the case, shouldn't everything have been covered with thick fog or something like that? Yeah, it was very dark, but when people lit the lamps, the visibility was pretty good. Nothing blocked the view except the black clouds that covered the sun. In other words, this phenomenon is very hard to explain. As far as we know, it happened only 5 to 6 times in the history of humankind. If there were other cases, they weren't documented. This phenomenon is impossible to predict, and no one knows how it works, as well as where and when it will happen next time. And although there are many hypotheses, none of them can be verified. Maybe if these events happen again in the future, we'll be able to study them better. But unfortunately, at the moment, the dark days remain a mystery. Do you have any theories or ideas on this stuff? If so, write them down in the comments.
Weird, unusual sounds out of nowhere are spreading all over our galaxy, constantly repeating, and it's something we've never heard before. Scientists discovered it in 2020, and it was nothing like any of the other energy signatures they ever studied. Powerful and bright radio signals occurring from time to time, mysteriously disappearing within a day. It doesn't fit the profile of any space body we know. The signal is a bit irritating, and it disappears without a schedule. When scientists tried to match the signal with some other telescopes, it was gone. Low-mass stars sometimes flare up with radio energy, but not here, since they mostly have X-ray counterparts. Very dense collapsed stars, like pulsars and magnetars, are also not a choice. The closest solution they got is a mysterious class of objects we know as the Galactic Center Radio Source, GCRT. It's a radio source that brightens and rapidly glows. It decays near the center of our galaxy and could help us unravel the mysteries of the universe. If you had a flying car that could go up at a speed of 60 miles per hour, you'd only need 1 hour to get into space. The moon is a little bit farther, 250,000 miles, which is about 10 times the circumference of our planet. That means a moon trip would be like taking a tour around the globe and doing it 10 times straight, which would take less than 6 months. A trip to Pluto would take over 800 years. Proxima b is the closest Earth-like neighbor we have. It's a small rocky world that orbits the closest stellar neighbor of our Sun. It orbits the star's habitable zone, an area that's far enough from any star to have moderate conditions, not too cold and not too hot for liquid water to at least hypothetically exist. If you tried to travel to Proxima b at a speed of 25,000 miles per hour, which is the speed of the Apollo moon rockets, it would take you over 112,000 years to get there. You might not be able to breathe there. No one knows if Proxima b has an atmosphere. Humans explore the universe all the time, but we can only see around 5% of the matter up there. And Albert Einstein was the first one that realized the empty space is not really nothing. The rest we can't see is actually made up of invisible matter, also known as dark matter. It's about 27%, combined with something called dark energy, which is 68%. If you try to pour water into space, of course, outside of a spacecraft, it would immediately boil away or vaporize. That's because there's no air or air pressure in space. As air pressure lowers, the temperature you'd usually need to boil water at also gets lower. Keeping that in mind, water boils way faster on a mountaintop than, for example, at sea level. There's no air pressure in space, so water could boil at a very low temperature. Scientists believe that there are at least a couple of billion galaxies out there. We don't know the real number, and probably never will, but they tried to calculate it by counting how many galaxies we can see in a pretty small and restricted area of the sky. It may seem as if the universe was filled with stars and a couple of planets here and there, but our home galaxy has at least 100 billion planets. If you fill a balloon with helium and release it, you'll notice it floats very high. It'll go up into the atmosphere, but it won't go into outer space. The higher you go, the thinner the air in our atmosphere gets. Your balloon will rise up until the point where the atmosphere surrounding it has the same weight as the helium inside it. That will happen at approximately a height of 20 miles above the surface. So this is as far as a helium balloon can rise. We don't really know how big the universe is. We can't see its edges, nor do we know if it even has an edge. We use technology to see out to a distance of around 14 billion light-years from our planet. This means we can see around 28 billion light-years in diameter across, starting with the outermost layer of our atmosphere that ends at around 600 miles above our planet's surface. Although the size of the universe is constantly changing, and gets bigger through time. Mercury is closest to the Sun, so most people think it's the hottest planet too. Still, Venus is the hottest planet. It's the second planet away from our central star, around 30 million miles farther from the Sun compared to Mercury. Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere, which is like some sort of a warming blanket that helps maintain the heat coming from the Sun. Venus has an unexpectedly thick atmosphere, around 100 times thicker than the one we have. Its atmosphere doesn't let the heat out, it just keeps it, and constantly makes Venus hotter and hotter. Also, it mostly consists of carbon dioxide that freely lets solar energy in. But it's less transparent to lose long wavelength radiations that the warm, heated surface emits. The average temperature there is around 875 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to melt tin. The maximum temperature on its neighbor, Mercury, is 800 degrees Fahrenheit. In maybe 2 or more billion years, it will be way too hot for life to exist on our precious planet. As the hundreds of millions of years go by, our sun will keep getting hotter and brighter. Eventually, temperatures will be so high, our beautiful oceans will be wiped away. Since they produce 70% of the oxygen we need to survive, there will be no life without them. All of this means that our planet will simply become a vast desert, something like Mars is today. Pluto, a very distant used-to-be planet, now dwarf planet, is actually smaller in diameter than the entire US. The biggest distance there, from Maine to Northern California, is approximately 2,900 miles, while Pluto is only 1,473 miles across. Pluto is very far, but the edge of our solar system is 1,000 times farther away than this dwarf planet. But astronomers found many space objects orbiting our sun way farther than Pluto, such as Kuiper Belt objects and trans-Neptunian objects. There's also an Oort comet cloud that goes half a light year from Pluto, also 1,000 times farther. A neutron star is really heavy. Just a teaspoon filled with it would weigh 6 billion tons. Neutron stars are something that remain from huge stars that have run out of fuel. The fading star explodes, and its core falls apart, but due to gravity, it forms an extremely dense neutron star. These stars typically have a mass of up to 3 suns, but the radius there is around 6 miles, because this is one of the densest things in our universe, at least that we know about. The universe has a color, and it averages to be some kind of beige, or as they call it, cosmic latte. It also has its own smell that reminds you of seared steak or hot metal. At least, that's something astronauts floating in space have said. If you want to build a spacesuit, get ready to work really hard. It takes 5,000 hours to make it and will cost you $1 million. A really good one will have 11 layers of material and weighs about 110 pounds, and it needs to be comfortable. You'll need more space in there because you grow up to 2 inches when in space. When you're floating around in space, Earth's gravity doesn't have any impact on you. That's why the vertebrae in your spine might expand and relax a little bit, which means you'll be maybe 3% taller. For 6 feet, it's about 2 extra inches. Oh, don't worry, it's not permanent. As soon as you go down to Earth, you'll shrink back down to your normal size within a couple of months. Space isn't the best option if you want to have a conversation with your friend, because up there, sound doesn't travel at all. Molecules there are so far apart that sound vibrations can't reach them, which automatically means they can't vibrate, so we can't hear them. Movies are not accurate with this. No one could hear you screaming in space, too. We kind of live inside our sun. The sun is not just that big hot ball of light located 93 million miles away from us. Its outer atmosphere is way bigger. It extends far beyond the surface we can see. Our planet's orbit goes through its tenuous atmosphere. The evidence is when gusts of the solar wind generate the southern and northern lights. That means, in some way, we live inside the sun. Not just us, other planets too, including distant Neptune. The heliosphere, which is what we call the outer solar atmosphere, extends to about 10 billion miles.
Thousands of strange spaceships sneak into Earth's airspace. They descend to our planet and fly through cities, plunging people into complete chaos. Suddenly, the door of the largest ship opens, and a strange creature comes out. It tries to copy our language and says they had come from a distant star, Proxima Centauri. Something like this might happen because scientists have recently picked up a strange radio signal off that star. Proxima Centauri is the closest star to our solar system. It's only 4.2 light years away. That means a beam of light that starts from this star reaches Earth in 4.2 years. That's also 270,000 distances from Earth to the Sun. The star Proxima Centauri itself is too pale for us to see with the unaided eye in the night sky, but its system hides a little secret. Let's fly there and take a closer look. So here's this red dwarf. It's 7 times smaller than our Sun and 8 times lighter. Proxima Centauri is 1.5 times bigger than Jupiter and almost 150 times heavier. But what we're looking for is a little further away. This is Proxima Centauri b, a planet similar to Earth. It's only 10% larger than Earth and is in the habitable zone of the star. It's the perfect distance, not too far away and not too close. So the temperature isn't too high or low there either. Water, if it exists on that planet, can be in a liquid state. And so, life can survive and evolve there. Maybe it's developed enough to send us the signal that we had received. A radio signal is basically waves. They have a certain frequency and length, and we can always tell an artificial signal from a naturally generated one. The signal that we picked up from Proxima Centauri b had a frequency of 982 megahertz. The regular radio we listen to in the kitchen or in the car picks up signals around 100 megahertz. That's why scientists have concluded that the signal was created artificially. Such signals could have a way of communication between the developed worlds. If this is really a message from an outer space civilian, we should be able to decode it. For this, any civilization must use the simplest method of encryption. For example, Earth has already sent a radio signal into space. It was the Arecibo message. This message consists of 1,679 digits. It's a rectangle of 23 by 73 squares that has information about our civilization encoded using a binary code. At the top of the rectangle, there's a system of numbers that we use. They're marked in white. This purple thing is the key to read the next part of the message. The atomic numbers of the elements like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus are encoded in this key. These are the key elements that can start life. If those who receive this signal can make sense of the numbers in the key, they can read the next part of the message. These green things are the building blocks of our DNA chain. And right at the bottom here is the DNA chain itself. The white rectangle indicates the number of pairs of these building blocks, and the blue spirals show the shape of a DNA chain. And then we see the human silhouette itself. The white and blue object to its left is a coded number of our average height. The human itself is drawn here at the ends of the DNA strand, so that the outer space civilization can understand what we look like. And the white rectangle to the right of the human sketch is the number of Earth's population at the time of the message. That's 4.2 billion as of 1974, almost half the number we have now. The next part is a drawing of our solar system. The big yellow square is the Sun. Then come all the planets in our solar system, including Pluto. Earth is shifted up a bit here, so that outer space civilization can understand where this message is coming from. In the last drawing is the observatory from which this message had been sent into space. This signal is now on its way to the M13 star cluster 25,000 light years away from Earth, so it won't get there for another 25,000 years. And we'll need another 25 to get a response if there is really someone on the other side who can receive the signal. If the signal from Proxima Centauri is also a message, we'll need time to decode it. So let's fire up our super-powered computing machine and wait for the result. But this isn't the first mystery signal we've ever picked up on Earth. Scientists recorded an unusual WOW signal in 1977. They supposed it came from somewhere in the constellation of Sagittarius. The telescope was picking up the unknown signal for an impressive 72 seconds. Later, a scientist who looked at the printout of the signal concluded that the signal was artificial. He wrote, "Wow," on the printout as his reaction. The following observations and studies couldn't catch this signal again. Some theories said that this signal came from a celestial spaceship flying by. It had flown away, and we could no longer detect the signal. But most likely, this signal was created on Earth. It was directed upward but reflected off an object at a high altitude. It could have been an airplane, a satellite, or space debris orbiting our planet. Then the signal was picked up by the telescope, and because it was human-made, all of its characteristics, like wavelength and frequency, could have confused scientists. In 2017, scientists recorded a flare on Proxima Centauri. The star's brightness increased by 1,000 times in just 10 seconds. Before that, there was another flare there that was weaker but lasted about 2 minutes. With these flares, Proxima Centauri has emitted enormous amounts of radiation. Even if there was life on the star's companion planet, these flares would have likely destroyed it. The stellar winds would have simply blown the atmosphere off the planet and made its surface lifeless. Overall, the planet Proxima Centauri b receives 60 times more high-energy radiation and 400 times more X-ray radiation than Earth. Scientists have concluded that the probability of life here is 1 to 100 million. And while we don't know yet for sure if the signal was artificial or natural, the scenario of a bunch of spaceships coming to Earth is most likely possible. Our only method for searching for outer space civilizations is using radio waves. They're like loud noise that blasts away from our planet in different directions at the speed of light. The main problem here is the gigantic distances. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is 100,000 light-years wide. Suppose there's life at the other end of it. If we send a radio signal to them, it won't reach that supposed planet for another 100,000 years. And we won't get a response for another 100,000 years. It's the same if someone once wanted to contact us. We didn't learn how to create and receive radio signals until the 19th century. If a civilization was developing at the same time as us somewhere in the Milky Way and they invented the radio, we won't get their signal for several millennia. Plus, the radio noise from our planet is starting to fade away. We use Bluetooth, fiber optics, cable TV. So in about 100 years, we'll no longer be visible to other worlds. Or worse, what if there was an outer space civilization somewhere that was sending signals into space? The signals were reaching our planet, but we didn't yet have the technology to pick them up. The world that was sending the signal has evolved, and the signal went out. We could have caught those remnants of the radio waves that were moving through the universe, but we set up the antennas too late. There are about 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. Each of them contains billions and trillions of stars similar to our sun. Maybe there's a planet near one of them that looks like ours. Life could be blooming there. And this outer space civilization, just like us, is looking through telescopes in hopes to catch the radio signal from an unknown planet.
Hey, wake up! Quick, listen to that. It's a 5-second FM signal coming from one of Jupiter's moons. You fumble for your phone and inform your colleagues. They freak out over the news and rush to the lab. You've been a scientist working with the Juno probe, exploring Jupiter for years. But this is the first time you've witnessed something so unusual. Ganymede is Jupiter's largest moon and the biggest moon in our solar system. If this space body didn't orbit around Jupiter, it would be classified as a planet. It's even bigger than Mercury and Pluto. What makes this moon stand out among others is the fact that it has its own magnetic field. The moon was born around 4.5 billion years ago. It means it's as old as Jupiter itself. This planet-sized space body takes 7 Earth days to orbit its planet. Everyone gathers at the laboratory, impatiently waiting for you to play the recording of the signal coming from space. Your colleagues get their game on, trying to figure out what the source of this mysterious sound is. Around 40% of Ganymede's surface is dark, with craters scattered around, and 60% is light-colored. There are formations that were probably caused by tectonic activity or the release of water from under the surface. Scientists managed to discover a thin layer of oxygen trapped in the moon's atmosphere. The temperatures there are super low, between -170 to -200 degrees Fahrenheit. There isn't much information about how the moon behaves or what chemical elements it hides inside. Some of your colleagues try to create the same conditions that existed when the sound was transmitted. For hours, they sit there waiting, but nothing. Maybe it was a fluke. You get to the control system and activate the Juno spacecraft. The main point of this mission is to observe Jupiter's gravity, magnetic fields, the atmosphere, and the planet's evolution. By the way, there's also some evidence that Jupiter's largest moon is evolving too. Since it has a magnetic field surrounding it, auroras pop up all the time. Those are glowing gas circling the moon's north and south poles. If life existed in such a place, it would probably be at the bottom of Ganymede's extremely salty ocean. For a long time, scientists thought that the sun was a crucial component to kickstart life. But now we know that there are organisms dwelling deep at the bottom of the oceans. Those are doing just are creatures of all shapes and sizes. Sea lilies live some 10,000 feet underwater. They got their name because they look like flowers, except they're not plants but animals. Don't be fooled by their stems and leaves. Those are body parts equipped with nerve endings to detect food around them. Goblin sharks are probably some of the most weird-looking sharks that live at the bottom of the ocean. They can grow up to 12 feet long and have a very unusual snout. Now, take a look at the anglerfish. It has a bioluminescent blob on its head to attract prey and navigate its way around the dark ocean floor. It's a natural flashlight that never needs new batteries. It's only the females that have these flashlights, though. The blobfish is another bizarre animal living down there. It lives in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, 9,000 feet under the surface. Anyway, even though you asked everyone to keep the news confidential, it somehow leaks to the media and becomes a new trending topic. You get a call from a news agency. They say they want to interview you about this breakthrough that may prove life exists in outer space. The next day, you head down to the news station to talk about your discovery. You have a whole live studio audience watching your every move as you reach out to grab your glass of water. The crew scurries around doing some last-minute checkups before you're live on air. The makeup artist does some final brush-ups. The sound engineer asks you to test your mic once more. Several of the producers are sitting in the front seats. Bright lights are flooding the studio. The countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, and you're introduced, and the host asks you to explain what it was that you heard. You tell them about the Juno space probe orbiting Jupiter. After a couple of questions, the host finally brings up the most dreaded one. Might the mysterious sound be coming from another civilization? Everyone leans in, waiting for you to answer. You freeze, not knowing what to say. Even though the crushing pressure at the bottom of the ocean is 1,000 times stronger than at sea level, life still exists there. Algae, which is considered a delicacy in the ocean world, is off-menu for deep-sea creatures due to a lack of sunlight. Many of these bottom dwellers have to munch on leftovers instead. Those sink down there from the upper layers of the ocean. The freezing temperatures and the intense pressure have altered the cells of these creatures. This has made them more resilient than the average fish. Bacteria were developing their own ways of surviving. Studies show that they feed on certain gases and chemicals, like sulfur and carbon dioxide. Methane and hydrogen are released when tectonic plates move against each other, and some of these bacteria feast upon those gases too. Tardigrades, also known as water bears, are microscopic critters that can live and thrive in extreme conditions. You can find them in volcanoes, frozen glaciers, and even in the empty void of space, which means that some life forms might actually exist on Ganymede. You explain this to your audience. Then you mention that you don't have enough information to determine if it was another civilization or a natural phenomenon that produced the sound. This doesn't mean that the bottom of Ganymede's freezing oceans isn't teeming with its own bizarre and weird creatures. There might be some legendary beasts like the kraken or leviathan there, or weird glowing fish with 2 heads, a fish with tentacles and a large fin, giant crabs. The bacteria there might be as varied as our own. The plants, if they exist there, have to be strong enough to survive the sub-zero temperatures. The animals on Jupiter's largest moon could be as big as our blue whales or as tiny as plankton. After the interview, you head back to the lab to examine the records once more. On your way home, you see posters of yourself with captions like, "Are we not alone?" Hey, you've become a celebrity. Many people take pictures of you. You've been booked by other agencies for more interviews. Some science magazines even want to put you on the front cover as the Person of the Year. Every time you come to work, you wait for the sound to appear again. But nothing. You send a signal from the Juno probe, trying to make some sort of contact with whatever produced the sound. Nothing. That night, you pass out on your desk once more. Eureka moment wakes you up in the middle of the night. There might be something you've missed. You run the numbers again and realize that the answer was in front of you this whole time. It wasn't another civilization that produced this sound. The source was electrons. Every planet produces its own sound. It's created when charged particles from the solar wind and the planet's magnetosphere interact with one another. That's what happened on Ganymede. The electrons in its magnetic field, where the probe picked up the signal, were acting stranger than usual, and this amplified some irregular frequencies. You're embarrassed and spend the rest of your night making phone calls, telling your team the news. The agency that interviewed you releases a statement. They explain that other civilizations aren't trying to contact us. You sit back at your desk, waiting for the next big thing to happen. Europa is another of Jupiter's moons that may host life. It's made up of an iron core, a mantle, and a salty ocean, twice the volume of all the oceans on Earth. And just like Ganymede, the ocean lies under a water ice crust. Scientists claim that there might even be active volcanoes there, and some resilient bacteria may live there. With enough water, certain chemicals, and a source of energy, Europa could produce life. But it's unlikely that we'll find anything but tiny microbes.
A bridge, a very helpful structure that traces back to the Neolithic times. The oldest bridge in the world, at least the one that is still standing, is the Archidiko Bridge, built more than 3,000 years ago. But there's a river you cannot cross using a bridge: the Amazon River, the largest and longest river in the world. Okay, the Nile River is actually the longest river in the world, but the Amazon wants both titles for itself. The Amazon River is born in Peru and crosses Colombia and Brazil until it reaches a massive delta at the Atlantic Ocean. Its waters travel a longer distance than Frodo and Sam, and yet not a single bridge has ever been built over it. Why is that? First of all, seasonal floods change the size of the river. During dry seasons, the Amazon is about 3 miles wide, but during heavy rains, it can get up to 30 miles wide in a few weeks. Not only that, but the flood also makes the river change its position. Now imagine trying to build a bridge in a place where the ground turns into water for about 4 months. Not an impossible task, but not the easiest one either. Now, if you look back at your geography classes, you might remember that the soil of the riverbank can be very soft, especially in the Amazon, which means it can erode and shift. Heavy rains also create marshes, a type of wetlands that actually reduces the magnitude of the floods and purifies the water. It's also home to many animals. This means that to build a bridge, part of this wetland would have to be drained, which would ruin the lives of all those animals. Besides, the foundations of said bridge would have to be deep, and that would cost a lot of money. The rain creates yet another problem for the potential bridge. It increases the river's water level by 13 to almost 50 feet. Of course, bridges have been built in deep rivers before, like the Padma Bridge, a gigantic structure with a foundation of 417 feet. But because the soil of the Amazon River can erode easily, a bridge would have to be built using floating structures, known as pontoons, and they're not helpful in a river that changes depth whenever it feels like it. Next on our list of things that are a problem to human endeavors is the Amazon rainforest. This forest spreads over 9 countries and is so big and so dense it could cover about half of Europe. This means that a bridge would almost likely connect one patch of the forest to another. A pointless improvement to the lives of capybaras and jaguars. Of course, the real users of such a bridge would be humans. Most people live around the tributaries of the Amazon River, not around the river itself, because who wants to live like a beaver at a dam? There's even a state called Amapá on the left side of the Amazon River that is completely cut off from the rest of Brazil. You could easily take your car and visit its neighbor, a place called French Guiana. But if you wanted to go to another part of Brazil, you'd have to find other means of transportation. Aside from small riverside populations that live right on the riverside, of the Amazon, bigger cities were built near tributary rivers, like the Rio Negro, which has a bridge, by the way, and the Nanay River in Peru. The bridges that go over the Nanai and the Rio Negro are the only two bridges over the rivers in the Amazon basin. The lack of good roads and highways inside the Amazon also makes the creation of bridges a pointless endeavor. Back in the 70s, humans had big ideas on how to explore the Amazon ever more, which is why they decided to build a highway which would cut the Amazon basin from left to right. The road, called the Trans-Amazonian Highway, was supposed to bring people to the heart of the Amazon. But it seems like the difficulties of building more than 2,000 miles of road inside a dense rainforest were not foreseen. Halfway through, the project was abandoned because it was super expensive and problematic. Nowadays, highways in the Amazon basin are always flooded, filled with holes and mud. This whole situation creates a ripple effect. People don't live near the river because it's hard to access it. The roads don't go there either, because it's hard to build them. Which in turn makes even fewer people want to settle on the banks of the Amazon River, because they have no roads to get them there. So, if there are no roads and no bridges, how do people live there? You're not gonna believe this, but the riverside population uses a very old but reliable invention called a boat. The Amazon River is fully navigable, and the people that live there use it like a road. Much like motorcycles, cars, and buses, the Amazon River has canoes, speedboats, and ferries. There's even a very specific ferry called Obidense, transporting people to the municipality of Obidos, hence the name. Locals do everything on boats. They even have a boat hospital that floats around and visits riverside populations and a boat bank, so you can do all your bank-related things while looking at the vastness of the Amazon. Honestly, genius invention. The downside to this lack of bridges is that it stops us from exploring the truly hidden gems of the world. In the Amazon, for example, there are over 10,000 undiscovered archaeological sites. We may never be able to dig out stuff like fortified villages, geoglyphs, and many other structures. It would be pretty neat to go full-on Lara Croft in the middle of the Amazon, but these findings are tucked deep in the heart of the forest. At the same time, only on a boat are you able to witness the crazy phenomenon of the unmixed waters of the Rio Negro and the Solimões on the Amazon River. For more than 3 miles, these two tributaries of the Amazon River flow side by side without mixing. The speed and the temperature of these waters are different, so you'll see a river that looks like coffee and Coca-Cola mixed. This awesome phenomenon is called the meeting of waters. But the Amazon River is not the only river in the world deemed bridgeless. The Congo River, the second longest river in Africa, only has one bridge crossing it. The two Congos, yes, there are 2 different countries in the world named Congo, are separated by the Congo River, and so far, no roads connect them. Also, fun fact, some geologists believe that back when Gondwana existed and the continents were all cuddled together, the Amazon and the Congo River were one river connected to each other. Another place with a lack of bridges is the east side of the Thames in London. The west side of the river is narrower, which makes building a bridge easier. There are about 33 bridges on the west side alone, but if you want to cross the river from the east side, it's gonna be a hassle. The thing is, back in the 1800s, shipping companies decided that building too many bridges over the Thames was too expensive, because this was a shipping route and the bridges would have to be taller than usual. The structure would also have to be long, since some parts of the Thames are about 1,870 feet wide. But building long bridges is not a problem per se. In Rio de Janeiro, for example, you can find the Rio Niterói Bridge, which is about 8.26 miles long. Back when it was built in the 70s, it was the second longest bridge in the world. The bridge is so long that in 2018, a girl was born while her mother was crossing it, and now the birthplace in her birth certificate is literally the bridge. There's also no U-turn on it, so if you drive onto the bridge by mistake, you're in for a long drive. So next time you feel like exploring the Amazon, remember to pack your own boat.
So, contrary to popular belief, labeling the Nile as the longest river in the world might be a misconception. The measurement of a river's length entails more than simply calculating the distance between its starting point and end point. Rivers are intricate systems comprised of various tributaries, which significantly impact their overall length. In fact, when accounting for these tributaries, the initial figure can increase up to threefold, exemplified by the Mississippi River. From its origin in Itasca to its conclusion in New Orleans, the measurement suggests one length. However, the inclusion of the Missouri River alters this perception entirely. This discrepancy has fueled ongoing debates regarding the Nile's length compared to that of the Amazon River. Despite Google's recognition of the Nile as the longest river worldwide, it may not fully align with the factual reality. That's a nice way to put it. To comprehend this concept, envision rivers as the veins within a human body. It would be inaccurate to assume that a 6-foot-tall individual only has 6 feet of veins, right? Veins intricately weave throughout the entire body, much like a vast network. Rivers operate under the same principle, and the length of the main river is not the sole consideration. The extensive network of tributaries holds equal importance. Meanwhile, atmospheric rivers are fascinating meteorological occurrences, characterized by air currents that transport incredible amounts of water vapor all the way from the Amazon rainforest in northern South America to as far as northern Argentina. These airborne highways serve as essential conduits for the life-giving moisture carried by these airborne rivers, and their influence extends across Brazil's central west, southeast, and south regions, shaping the waterfall patterns in these areas. When these ethereal rivers converge with specific weather conditions, such as a cold front, the latent humidity they bear can transform into much-needed rainfall. This precipitation plays a vital role not only in sustaining the diverse ecosystems of the region, but also supporting Brazil's thriving economy in multiple ways. The significance of this phenomenon is evident as it enables the irrigation of crops, ensuring agricultural productivity and food security. Additionally, it replenishes local rivers, keeping the water flow steady and supporting aquatic life. Moreover, the water collected by these rivers is channeled into dam reservoirs, providing a reliable source of energy for the nation. The amount of water carried by the airborne rivers may match or even surpass the enormity of the Amazon's flow. Thus, when we unite the conventional Amazon River with its aerial counterpart, it becomes significantly larger than the Nile. Atmospheric rivers are also observed in the Congo Basin, where the climate is predominantly shaped by the moisture emanating from the Atlantic Ocean and the forests of the Congo Basin. This incredible phenomenon leads to evaporation levels as high as 3 to 6 feet of water per year. These rivers vary in size and strength, but on average, they transport a water vapor volume comparable to the flow at the mouth of the Mississippi River. In rare cases, exceptionally powerful atmospheric rivers can carry up to 15 times that amount. When these rivers reach land, they release the accumulated water vapor, resulting in rainfall or snowfall. Although atmospheric rivers come in various forms, those with high water vapor content and intense winds can cause extreme precipitation and flooding, especially when they linger over flood-prone watersheds. An example of a well-known atmospheric river is the Pineapple Express, a robust system capable of transporting moisture from the tropical regions near Hawaii to the U.S. West Coast. Such events can disrupt travel, trigger mudslides, and lead to significant destruction of life and property. However, not all atmospheric rivers pose risks. Many are weaker systems that provide valuable rain or snow, essential for maintaining water supplies. Plus, they play a critical role in the global water cycle and have a close association with water supply and flood hazards, particularly in the western United States. In addition for the potential for flooding, atmospheric rivers also contribute to desirable increases in snowpack. A series of atmospheric rivers was responsible for severe winter storms that battered the U.S. West Coast from western Washington to southern California between 2010 and just recently in early 2024, resulting in rainfall ranging from 11 to 25 inches in certain regions. So, if water vapor can be considered a river, it begs the question, what else can be classified as a river? Surprisingly, even without any water, something can still be deemed a river. This fascinating phenomenon is known as a wadi, traditionally referring to a river valley. Wadis can be found in gently sloping, almost flat areas of deserts. Unlike traditional rivers, wadis lack permanent channels due to the sporadic presence of water flow. As a result, they exhibit braided stream patterns caused by limited water supply and an abundance of sediments. The water that does manage to reach the stream bed percolates down, causing a sudden decrease in energy and significant deposition. Additionally, Wadis can develop sediment dams, altering stream patterns during subsequent flash floods. Interestingly, wind also plays a role in sediment deposition within Wadis. When Wadi sediments are submerged or moist, wind-driven sediments settle on top of them, resulting in a mixture of both water and wind sediments. Rivers can be peculiar not just because they consist of sand or air, but also because of their fascinating coverings. In certain conditions, Scotland's River Dee reveals an intriguing sight: peculiar frozen formations that resemble lily pads. These formations, called ice pancakes or pancake ice, occur naturally when gentle waves cause smooth pieces of ice to collide, resulting in smooth rounded edges. As these ice disks interact with the waves, they gain raised edges, giving them an appearance reminiscent of lily pads. Usually, pancake ice has a somewhat slush-like consistency. Some media reports have suggested that the ice on the River Dee formed from frozen foam. But scientists explain that while it is plausible, the pancake ice still develops through the collision process. Over time, these ice pancakes often merge together, forming large sheets of ice. If the ice becomes thick enough and the water remains turbulent, it can bend, fracture, and stack upon itself, creating remarkable structures called ice ridges. Now, imagine a river not made of water but of methane. It may sound like an outlandish idea, but on Saturn's moon Titan, this is actually a reality. Vid Flamina, a fascinating river on Titan, consists of liquid methane and ethane and has drawn comparisons to the mighty Nile. Stretching over 249 miles, it gracefully flows into l'Egea Mare, which is Titan's second largest hydrocarbon sea. While most of Titan's surface is composed of water ice, Vid Flamina stands out as a breathtaking river that carves canyons into the icy terrain, mimicking solid bedrock. NASA scientists believe that this extraordinary river hosts rapids, whirlpools, and even waterfalls, mirroring the features found in Earth's rivers. When NASA's Cassini probe reached Saturn in 2004, its main goal was to explore this giant planet and its moons. Scientists were particularly interested in finding evidence of liquid methane on Titan due to its unique surface temperature and methane-rich atmosphere. However, initial observations from Cassini, concentrated on Titan's equatorial region, disappointed the researchers as they found no signs of seas or rivers. But this disappointment turned into excitement when Cassini's orbit shifted, enabling the team to focus on other areas of Titan's surface using radar techniques. Surprisingly, radar signals bounced off various angled and rough features such as sand dunes, cliffs, and rocks. But when the radar reached Titan's polar regions, the signal ceased, revealing mysterious dark spots resembling lakes, rivers, and tributaries akin to those found on Earth. The groundbreaking discovery came in December 2012 when Yanni Radabau, a scientist working with Cassini's team, announced an image captured in September of the same year. The image unveiled a river resembling the Nile, extending over 200 miles in a relatively straight course, indicating a correlation with fault lines similar to other significant rivers nearby. This remarkable flowing body navigates through rugged and inclined terrain, suggesting the occurrence of tectonic processes comparable to those on Earth.
It's the first day of your long-awaited trip to the Amazon forest. You flew all the way to South America. More specifically, you landed in the city of Manaus. It's the heart of the Brazilian Amazon. So far, you've traveled by air, car, and now water. You are on a tiny boat moving through the dark waters of the Amazon River. Yes, the river is also called the Amazon. And just FYI, it's the second longest river in the world. It loses only to the Nile River in Egypt. The Amazon sprawls for an impressive 2,700 square miles, beginning in Peru and ending only when it meets the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Brazil. To get a closer look at the forest, you decide to start by exploring it by boat. First up, you watch some piranha fishing. You can even try to catch one yourself if you like. As you may know, piranhas are carnivorous fish that inhabit the Amazon River, so it might not be your best option to go swimming in these waters. One of the most emblematic species of alligators present in the Amazon River basin is the broad-snouted caiman. It looks pretty much like a regular alligator, except for the fact that it has a yellow chin. Your guide leaves the boat and searches the water to show you a caiman up close. He also tells you of another legendary creature that lives in the dark waters of the river, the pink dolphin. Lucky you get to witness a family of pink dolphins showing their fins near your boat. They look magical from the place where you're sitting. You've probably never known dolphins can be pink, huh? After a few mesmerizing moments, you discover that the dolphin's pink color is nothing but an illusion. The animals are originally pinkish-gray, but due to the brown colors of the Amazon River, they look vivid pink when you stare at them from above. Your guide tells you that the pink dolphin is a central character of Brazilian folklore. Locals believe that the pink dolphins can turn into humans and wander off into towns at night. You get off your boat near one of the entrances to the forest. Now you're going to continue your trip on foot. Your guide says that you are venturing into very dangerous terrain. The Amazon is home to some of the creepiest species of wildlife on the globe, but don't worry, we'll get to see a lot of them today. You've come prepared, of course. Bug spray, a raincoat, and your sharp eyes. Inside the jungle, you need to be alert at all times. You may have heard legends of the anaconda, a snake that can swallow animals as big as a cow in one go. Sorry to break it to you, but those are not just legends. Reptiles like these do actually exist. They live deep in the jungle. Is it right there, moving between the trees? Is it a spider? The so-called Goliath bird-eater is a monster spider. Its legs can grow up to a foot in length, and the spider itself can weigh around 6 ounces. It's also known as the king of tarantulas. You shouldn't get too close, of course. It's not venomous to humans, but its bite can surely sting. As its name suggests, the Goliath bird-eater can even eat birds, as long as they are smaller than it is. Up next, you run into another species of spider that draws your attention. This one is so tiny that you almost don't see it. It's known by the popular name of the decoy spider. You see one of its creations, a gigantic spider built by the tiny Cyclosis spider in order to scare off large predators. This is as amazing as it is creepy. A spider that uses the remains of other insects and dry leaves to create the image of a large spider on its web. If it fools predators, perfect! But to us humans, this work of art looks almost endearing. Who knew there were artists in the arachnid world? Near a small lake, you witness a unique scene. A large snake is slowly slithering its way toward a lizard that is resting on a rock. The lizard seems obvious to the presence of the dangerous reptile, but right as the snake is preparing to attack, the lizard flies the scene in its iconic way. The so-called basilisk lizard is famous for its ability to walk on water, or rather run across the water. This isn't an illusion, just a matter of balancing. The small lizard moves its legs on top of the water very fast, while its long tail serves as a counterweight. I wish I could do that. If you've ever wondered what a frog looks like on the inside, you've come to the right place. Right in front of your eyes, there is a rare local species of frog. It's known as the glass frog. This species of amphibian has a type of transparent skin that is completely see-through. In other words, you can see the frog's interior with astounding clarity. It's as if you had X-ray vision. Moving on with your journey, soon you come across a pond. Floating on its water is probably the biggest water lily you've ever seen in your life. These huge plants are also known as the Victoria Amazonica. They can measure up to 8 feet across and hold the weight of a grown-up person. but I wouldn't recommend trying to climb on it if I were you. Just cause, you know, it's the Amazon forest we're talking about. The wildlife here is amazing, but the forest itself is also a sight. There are over 80,000 species of plants and trees grown in the Amazon rainforest. In fact, you can find 10% of all the world's wildlife in this jungle. An estimated 400 billion trees grow on the gigantic area the forest occupies. Of course, this place is bound to be biodiverse, right? You won't be able to witness this phenomenon during your trip, but your guide tells you about a unique species of tree that is famous for being able to walk. Yep, you've heard correctly. There are walking trees in the Amazon rainforest. They don't have legs or anything like that, but they do move around in search of better lighting conditions. The Amazon canopy is so thick that only 1% of sunlight can reach the forest floor. Because of this, some trees end up getting less sunlight than others. The so-called walking palm trees seem to be adapted to this situation. They grow new roots, which helps them move for 1 to 2 inches per day. They can walk up to 65 feet per year. Maybe that's what inspired John Ronald Reuel Tolkien to create ants, huh? Those are pretty similar tree beings that roam freely around the world. I kid you not, it's not only wildlife that inhabits the Amazon. Actually, over 30 million people live in the forest. And there are also ancient settlements that scientists believe to have been thriving there. And I'm not talking about El Dorado, that's just a myth. But in 2018, a groundbreaking study showed that up to 1 million people probably inhabited the Amazon, between 1250 and 1500 CE. Can you imagine that? Working alongside local indigenous people, researchers from the University of Florida found several mounds in the Amazon. Besides these mounds, they also discovered interesting ditches and geoglyphs. After mapping all of these recurring mounds, scientists understood that this was a sign of an ancient settlement. They found remnants of carefully designed walls centered around plazas. This could only mean that these ancient cities were big and could host hundreds of thousands of people. These findings brought back the idea that the Amazon could have been home to thriving civilizations way before the Europeans arrived there. But rather than cities drenched in gold, they were simply well-developed agricultural societies.
Hey, how do you feel about taking a trip back in time? We're diving into the history of the Amazon forest to unravel the mystery of its lost cities. Grab your bug spray and hop on. The Amazon forest is the world's largest rainforest. The environment there can be extremely challenging for human life. Yet, the legend goes that the Amazon has been home to sprawling settlements rich in unmeasurable wealth. Could that really be true? Or is that none other than a figment of our collective imagination? The legend of El Dorado might be the myth that started this whole thing. As European explorers began their excavations in American lands back in the 1500s, word got out of an Amazonian civilization that used to paint their leader in gold as an offering to higher powers. The legend of El Hombre Dorado, aka the Golden Man, began to quickly spread around Europe. Explorers got excited at the possibility of finding an infinite amount of gold somewhere deep within the Latin American jungle. And as you can imagine, expeditions to the continent began to multiply with each passing year. It didn't take long before explorers found this civilization. They were known as the Muisca people and were located in Colombia, near Lake Gudavia. The Muisca people had a tradition of painting their leader, aka the Zipa, from head to toe in gold. In a ceremonial gesture, the Zipa would swim into the river, spreading gold dust all over the lake. For the Muisca, this was their way of acknowledging and thanking the higher powers of the universe they believed in. When European explorers heard and witnessed this practice, they were amazed. For them, gold was used solely for commercial purposes as their main currency for trade. This made them think that the Muisca people must have stacks and stacks of gold hidden somewhere in the jungle for them to use it so abundantly. Well, that's how the legend of El Dorado was born. What was once the practice of El Hombre Dorado traveled on word of mouth until it became El Dorado, a fictional city that was most likely to hide piles of gold. The hunt for this city led Europeans to spend large amounts of money to scour the Amazon forest. Unfortunately, all of their expeditions came back empty-handed. That is, if they ever came back at all. Now, jump to the beginning of the 1900s. In England, the Royal Geographic Society, a prestigious British institution, was looking for somebody willing to travel down to Latin America to trace the border between Brazil and Bolivia. More specifically, the part of the border that is nestled deep within the Amazon rainforest. One Sir Percy Fawcett was a Latin American aficionado, and he gladly volunteered to do the job. Oh, it's important to note that the Amazon forest is virtually the size of the continental USA. It sprawls across 8 countries, including Brazil, Peru, and Bolivia. And trust me, getting around is no easy feat. The jungle is covered in dense vegetation, and in addition to that, it's home to insane predators such as anaconda snakes, panthers, crocodiles, piranhas, and so on. But despite all that, Fawcett was very successful in his mapping adventure and seemed to be wanting to come back more. Back in England, Fawcett would scour diaries from other explorers hoping to learn more about the ancient Amazonian civilizations. He would read about the Incas and the Mayans and the great empires they built. He believed that if the Incas were capable of building empires that stretched over 2 million square miles, this could mean that other Amazonian civilizations could have thrived there too. During his research, Fawcett came across a report from a 16th century explorer. The report told of a city deep within the Amazon forest that held unimaginable quantities of minerals, a town that stretched for 15 miles without any space from a house to house. This report fueled Fawcett's imagination to a new extreme. From then on, he became obsessed with finding what he called the lost city of Z. Over years, Fawcett searched the Amazon forest, usually looking for stone ruins that could possibly indicate human settlements. On his later expeditions, he focused on exploring the state of Mato Grosso in central Brazil. He would travel from Europe and into the lower region of the Xingu River. The trip to the Xingu would take him around 14 days on foot. Then, he would set sail in small wooden boats accompanied by local indigenous leaders that knew the region better than anyone. How he communicated with the indigenous population is still a mystery, since they only spoke in local dialects. Some scientists believe that this could have been the real reason why he never found the city. They believed he wasn't able to communicate what exactly he was looking for. And this was not his greatest difficulty. As we've said before, Amazon is not a kind place for its visitors. In his diaries, Fawcett tells of encounters with a 60-foot-long anaconda, which he bravely survived. He writes of endless sleepless nights and waking up with his hands and feet swollen from mosquito bites. Some of his peers said he was invincible and tireless, but the day came during his 8th expedition when he didn't make it back home. Fawcett disappeared without leaving any trace behind. Some even suspect that he was close to reaching his lifelong goal. On the day of his disappearance, he sent an optimistic letter to his wife saying there was nothing to fear, and that he was setting out on a certain final search. Fawcett's failed attempt to find ruins seemed to support what had become a consensus among experts at the time, that this rainforest was too inhospitable to support large, complex societies, let alone cities. Experts were convinced that the Amazon's lost cities were nothing more than fiction. That is, until the 1960s, when modern research began to find evidence that suggested otherwise. Scientists discovered patches of extremely fertile soil. They called it Black Earth. And apparently, they found lots of it in the Amazon, especially alongside rivers. Further research even showed that such soil was created by human waste or the intentional burning of forests, which adds nutrients to the soil below, which could only mean, bingo, The discovery of Black Earth was the evidence that large-scale agriculture was possible and probably did exist amidst the Amazon, confirming that settlements could have formed there after all. In the 1990s, along the Xingsu River in Brazil, a team of archaeologists from the University of Florida made a remarkable discovery. Working alongside local indigenous people, they found very long ditches. After mapping them, they realized that these ditches were a sign of a big settlement. They were remnants of carefully designed walls centered around a plaza. Some were roads that led to more settlements. In fact, just this part of the Amazon, about the size of New Jersey, was once a network of dozens of settlements that experts believe could have been home to at least 50,000 people between 1250 and 1650 CE. Other discoveries were possible thanks to LiDAR imaging, a type of technology that allows researchers to take satellite pictures of the forest's ground without having to step inside of it. A network of trenches in Acre, Brazil, dates back to 200 to 1200 CE. These suggest settlements that could have supported 60,000 people. Other images from near the Xingu River suggest cities that could have housed about 50 million people. These were the lost cities of the Amazon. Believe it or not, these images suggest that Fawcett was very close to a major discovery. He was looking for the ruins in the right place, but he was looking for the wrong thing. Unlike cities such as Cusco, which used stone as their primary material, Amazonian settlements used wood and earth to build their cities. These materials are highly deteriorating and probably decomposed over time. Finding them required a bit more technology than what Fawcett had available at his time.
You're strapped in a boat cruising down the Amazon River with the sun scorching hot. As you check out your map, your boat starts rocking back and forth. The water is starting to get more intense, so you hang on for dear life. You tuck your map in your pocket and try to take control of your boat. You strike some jagged rocks and duck low to avoid tree branches. Your boat strikes a large rock out of nowhere and capsizes. You're swimming in the murky green water. While you're trying your best to get ashore, your boat gets washed away. Underneath the water lies a whole new world of bizarre and dangerous animals. Candiru fish are snake-like creatures that can grow up to 16 inches long. Arapimus can weigh more than an adult male and are taller than most basketball players. They're the biggest freshwater fish in South America. They have a hybrid gill system that forces them to pop up to the surface every 5 to 15 minutes to breathe in oxygen for their large swim bladder. You swim out of the raging water and dry yourself off. Oh no, your map is completely soaked. There's no way you can get to your destination without it. You venture into the thick rainforest, shoving the branches and leaves away. As you get deeper, you notice something on a tree. It's barely moving, but it's got sharp claws and a raggedy coat. It stretches its arm to another branch and tries to pull itself up, ever so slowly. Sloths sleep more than half their days and only head down from trees once a week. They're so motionless, they sometimes grow algae and moss on their fur. The rainforest gets denser with each step until there's barely any sunlight illuminating the path in front of you. You notice a figure following you. With every branch you step on, you can hear a faint sound right next to you creeping around. You start walking a bit faster, and the sound catches up with you. You make it out of the dense part and tread along a narrow path until you reach a cliff. You can't walk normally here, so you pin against the wall and walk sideways to cross the hills. You slowly move across with the river 30 feet below you. You move your right foot, and some rocks fall into the river. You keep going and misstep. You're about to fall, but you hold on to a large tree branch and pull yourself up. You notice a couple of colorful poison frogs inches away from your fingers. Touching any of these frogs can be extremely dangerous and harmful, despite their amazing color patterns. The golden poison frog is one of the most poisonous animals in the world. One of them hops right next to you, so you let go of the branch and fall back in the river. The river is washing you down until you reach a calm current. Underneath you is a swarm of piranhas swimming with their sharp teeth. The red color on their skin is unmistakable, so you swim off like an Olympic athlete. Piranhas will eat anything that gets in their way, no matter the size. You grip onto a log and climb up a small rock to catch your breath. There's a huge electric eel underneath the rock. Despite their name, they're more related to catfish than eels. They use their powerful 600 volts of electricity to defend themselves and catch food. You're stuck, unless you're like the common basilisk that can run on the water like a jet ski. These incredible lizards have special webbing on their toes and can run the distance of a basketball court. You hop on a bunch of rocks until you reach the land. You continue walking along the riverbank until you come across a moving rock. You rub your eyes and see it moving again. It's a dinosaur-looking turtle that resembles a crocodile with armor. The mata mata is a freshwater turtle that disguises itself with its surroundings to catch prey. Their heads stretch longer than their bodies. You shimmy your way past it and continue. You head back into the rainforest and find a spot to rest. Wait, there are giant ants everywhere. They're the biggest ants in the world and can produce one of the most painful stings out there, even comparable to a wasp's sting. You immediately get up and find another place to rest. As you continue walking along, you notice the same feeling of something following you. You can hear some leaves rustling, but it's getting dark and there's no way of telling. You find a nice little spot to build a campfire and catch some Z's. But in the Amazon, everything is a threat. Except for those cute capybaras wandering around. They live in groups next to water sources. They're also the biggest rodents in the world. You don't need to worry about them if you're stuck in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Suddenly, you feel something slithering up next to you. You look down and see a massive green anaconda just about to constrict you. They are the heaviest snakes in the world and can grow up to 20 feet long and have a huge appetite. You get up and sprint your way out of there. All right, you found a decent cave to crash in. It's daytime again, and you're still alive. You continue walking along the rainforest. You were able to find some breakfast to boost your energy for the rest of the day. You spot something on a tree that looks like a branch, but it's actually a potu, a master of disguise that can spend days motionless on broken tree branches. These bizarre birds use those branches as their permanent home, where they lay their eggs and chill all day. You continue your way through the rainforest and see a Brazilian wandering spider crawling on a tree branch right in front of you. 8 of these species can be found in the Amazon area. They are some of the most aggressive and venomous spiders out there. So, you make a big detour and walk away from it. You feel someone walking next to you again, but you still can't figure out what it is. You see a steep cliff with a waterfall hitting a large lake ahead of you. Looks peaceful, until you see a team of black caimans gathering around the shore. They're the biggest predators in the whole Amazon ecosystem and feed on anything that moves. It's a good thing you're on high ground, otherwise, whoa! You slip and fall down the river, right on the deep end. So far, no caimans spotted you. You swim underwater and try to get to the opposite end of where the reptiles are. As you climb out and dry yourself off, you notice some large black spots on you. You try pulling them off, but they've latched on pretty hard. The Amazon giant leech finds its target by tracking movement and shadow. Once they attach themselves to the skin, it's extremely difficult to extract them. The best way to do so is to slide your finger next to its mouth and pull it off slowly. Ugh. You manage to get them off your body and see that the caimans are swimming towards you. You're pinned to the wall with the lake of hungry reptiles approaching. Suddenly, a pink dolphin jumps out of the water and splashes all over them. They can grow larger than humans and are the celebrities of the Amazon. Scientists think they get their color from the blood capillaries on their skin. The Amazon even has bull sharks swimming around. These carnivorous giant fish are threatening to humans and can swim in both saltwater and freshwater. These sharks prey on anything within their reach, including other sharks. The dolphin distracted the caimans, so you climb up the cliff and try to find the best way to escape. Opened jaws waiting for you to fall into the pit are right below you. You're lucky enough to escape to the top, but as your arms pull you up, the first thing that you see is a jaguar looking straight at you. It's the creature that's been following you this whole time. You get up while it starts circling you, timing its strike. You know that you can't take on a jaguar, nor can you outrun it, so you grab a large tree branch from the ground to defend yourself. It jumps at you, but you duck down in time. The jaguar lands in the water far away from the Cayman crocs. It's a good thing these large kitties are excellent swimmers. You pick yourself up and continue. And to your surprise, you find your boat again. You fix it up and sail your way out of the Amazon. Whew!
The Amazon River travels through 9 South American countries at a length of over 4,000 miles. Still, it's impossible to cross it by a bridge. With the river being the main highway, traveling through this dense forest, and so few areas populated around the river, there's just no reason to have one. The river can rise up to 30 feet, and the river crossings that were only 3 miles wide can expand to over 30 miles in just a few short weeks in certain spots, making a bridge nearly impossible to build here. In New Zealand, in the coastal town of Mauriki, there are huge spherical boulders. Some rocks are 6.5 feet tall and weigh about 7 tons, as much as 10 cows. Ooh, there's a 10-cow boulder. Maori legend has it that these rocks are from the remains of the goods from a large shipwreck that happened hundreds of years ago. From a more scientific perspective, it's sand and gravel combined to form these giant boulders. Waves and winds give them a smooth, round appearance over time. The whole process might take millions of years. Indonesia's Kaiwan Ijen volcano is famous for a stunning turquoise-colored lake sitting at the top of the peak, but don't dip in. It's an acid lake. But its scariest part is the sulfuric gases leaking out when lava flows freely, reaching temperatures hotter than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When those gases come in contact with the air, they combust into a spectacular electric blue flame. That's why the volcano has blue lava. The island of Surtsey, south of Iceland, was formed over 50 years ago by a volcanic eruption. It all began back in 1963 when a powerful volcanic eruption created one of the youngest islands on the planet. All sorts of bacteria, fungi, and molds began taking over the island, leading to numerous other animals finding their way here, like seals and birds. Birds and ocean waves deposited seeds all over the island. Sadly, the island's getting smaller now because of water and wind erosion. Located off the coast of Brazil, there's an island called… I'm a bit rusty on my Portuguese, so here it is on the screen. It looks perfectly untouched and pristine. Bad news? Dangerous snakes overrun it completely, so take a doctor with you in case you want to go there. Over 4,000 of the golden lancehead vipers inhabit this island. These 3-foot-long snakes are among the most venomous in the entire world. I think I'll skip that. Landing down under, you can see the Opera House, Uluru, lots of kangaroos, and catch the strangest wave of the world, Wave Rock in Western Australia. It's not made of water, but stone. They can be up to 50 feet tall and almost 300 feet long. It's especially incredible after rains in winter when the Western Australian wildflowers fill up the entire landscape. In Atlanta, there's a World of Coca-Cola museum. The formula for the secret recipe is in a large security vault, heavily guarded at all times. Only a handful of people can get through those vault doors. Since its creation in 1886, the company has kept it a secret for only the most honest employees. In 2006, a former worker tried to sell the formula to Pepsi, only for Pepsi to call the police and inform Coca-Cola. The Polka Dot Lakes is a must for anyone who is in British Columbia. After the summer's scorching heat evaporates the lake's water, it leaves behind yellow, blue, and green water spots. These pools are full of all sorts of minerals, like sodium, calcium, and magnesium sulfates that get concentrated in the pools. You can't get too close or even dip your feet into them. A fence protects the entire lake with a sign about how culturally and ecologically sensitive the area is. In Death Valley, California, there's a mystery of the sailing stones. Since the early 1900s, the mystery of how all these stones were seemingly moving by themselves across the desert floor baffled everyone. Some believe that the rocks move by thin pieces of ice around the stones pushed by winds after winter. No one ever saw any of these rocks moving until 2014. Scientists set time-lapse recorders, and the footage showed the rocks sliding along the ground over time. The Marble Caves in Chile, located in the beautiful area of Patagonia, formed from over 6,000 years of waves wearing down the rocks. The crystal blue walls reflect the vibrant turquoise water, making it perfect for kayaking. Walking in Chestnut Ridge Park in New York, one can see an eternal flame. What makes this one stand out, though, is it's underneath a waterfall. Occasionally, the flame will go out for short periods, but it will light up again. Sometimes it's thanks to certain hikers along the way. If you ever stop your car on a magnetic hill in New Brunswick, Canada, you'll see the car might start rolling backwards up the hill, all by itself. While it looks like it's moving the wrong way, this is just an illusion. There are several hills like this all around the world. What looks like an incline is the opposite, all because there's no horizon for perspective. The brightest bioluminescent bay in the world, called Puerto Mosquito, is located off the coast of Puerto Rico. The bay is named for the pirate Roberto Cofresi and his small boat El Mosquito, not after those annoying insects. During the summer months, you'll have glassy water at night with millions of tiny microorganisms bumping into each other and emitting blue light. The Chocolate Hills in the Philippines is a group of unusually shaped hills located in the middle of the island of Bohol in the Philippines. There are 1,000 to 2,000 discovered so far. They have nothing to do with chocolate at all, but they resemble the color after the dry season, when the grass turns from green to brown. In the northeastern part of Thailand, 466 miles away from Bangkok, is a 75-million-year-old rock formation sticking right out of the mountains. Their shapes look just like a pod of whales swimming together. No wonder this place is called Three Whale Rocks. Millions of years ago, this area was just a desert, but this land has changed quite dramatically during this time. These sandstone mountains were lifted up by plate tectonics, that's the shifting of the crust layers, called lithosphere, and erosion by the Mekong River, resulting in the strangely shaped rock formations we see today. Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia is the world's largest salt flat. At 4,050 square miles in size, it's twice as large as Grand Canyon National Park. After winter has passed, the salt lake is transformed into a beautiful giant sky-reflecting mirror between September and May. With salt all the way to the horizon, it creates an illusion of endlessness. The thin layer of water left over from ice melting creates a shimmering effect of the sky, making it one of the best places to visit in the world. The Catambo River in Venezuela might be the stormiest place in the world, with nearly 300 storm days a year. The lightning storms are so consistent, and they're predicted 3 months in advance. During the wet season in October, you might see 30 lightning flashes in a single minute. At sunset, strong winds flow around the 3 surrounding mountains, forming storm clouds over the water. When the water droplets of humid air collide with ice crystals from the cold air, the static charges cause a lightning storm that happens nearly every night. Off the southern tip of Japan lies the Yonaguni Formation. Archaeologists believe that the monument belongs to a fabled Pacific civilization, like Atlantis, that vanished beneath the waves thousands of years ago. If it's truly a lost civilization, or just nature having a little fun, this is the site to dive into. Features inside the structure resemble stonework like castles, temples, and a stadium, connected by roads and what seems to be large walls all the way around. There are even marks in the stone that appear to show quarry work, faded faces, and rocks sculpted into animal shapes. Some scientists believe that the symmetry of the stones is not as straight as reported. It appears solid rock rather than carved blocks, weathered down by all the water over many years. Plitvice Lakes National Park in Croatia is an interconnected chain of waterfalls, the tallest being 230 feet, and underground water channels, creating natural dams and lakes in such a picturesque environment. Found in the deep woodlands surrounded by meadows brimming with wildflowers, brown bears, gray wolves, lynx, deer, and plenty of rare bird species for birdwatchers call these 115 square miles of the national park home. Now, of course you know that the Amazon River is famous for its piranhas, bull sharks, and other creatures you don't want to meet. But there are even more dangerous rivers in the world. The deepest of them, the Congo, goes so far down in some sections that even light can't reach there. It's the only major river that crosses the equator twice and carries enough water to fill more than 13 Olympic-sized swimming pools into the Atlantic Ocean every second. Wow! Even the most experienced boaters have trouble passing through all of the river's strong currents, rapids in its upper part, and waterfalls and gorges in the lower section. The Congo currents are so fast and powerful that they even divide animals like mountains and oceans do. There are new species of fish evolving separately on the two banks as they can't reach the other side and breed with each other. One of the most dangerous types of fish living here is the Goliath tigerfish. These monsters, that grow up to 5 feet and travel at the speed of 25 miles per hour, are relatives of piranhas. Their mouths are full of vicious, razor-sharp teeth. Their females lay hundreds of thousands of eggs, and the offspring are predators from birth. You have a good reason to fear the Goliath tigerfish, as they're the only freshwater fish in Africa that have attacked crocodiles and even humans. Okay, not swimming there. There are dense jungles and more hungry wildlife, including snakes and some aggressive hippos, all along the river. Still, it's used as a water highway in Central Africa, so barges traveling on it for weeks are often crowded with up to 2,000 people and capsize every now and then. And if you believe the local folklore, there's one more thing to be afraid of: the one who stops the flow of the rivers, a dinosaur-like beast that is said to live in the Congo River basin. There have been over 100 sightings over the last century, but no one can provide solid evidence the beast is real. At the turn of the 21st century, there was a series of terrible, mysterious stories on the Kali River in Asia. Something described as a mud-colored water pig would drag swimmers underwater in front of terrified eyewitnesses. British biologist Jeremy Wade stepped up to crack the case. He noticed that all the scary incidents were happening in one specific spot, stretching about 4 miles. Villagers told him this creature was growing big and bad from all the food it got. Wade examined the water with a depth sounder and thought it could have been a whirlpool. Then the monster dragged a domestic water buffalo into the water. The buffaloes are big and heavy, so the creature that attacked it would have to be super strong. Saltwater crocodiles don't go so far inland, and the most common local species of crocodiles don't live in cold waters. There were no bull sharks in the area either. Finally, Wade spotted several goonch catfish underwater. Some of them were human-sized. They couldn't capture these monsters with a regular fishing rod, but a special ceremonial construction did the job. The largest fish was 6 feet 7 inches long and 3 times the weight of an average gaunch. It was large enough to take down a human or a large animal, but Wade mentioned there could be even bigger ones living in the Kali River. The Orinoco River in South America is dangerous to navigate because of some crazy curves and strong underwater currents. It's easy to get lost here, even if you have your GPS on. There are sudden waterfalls all along, and you must be prepared to handle those to survive. The river is the only home to a rare Orinoco crocodile and has some pretty scary-looking vampire fish swimming around. This payara fish has sharp, spiky daggers that line their gums and 2 elongated fangs that rise from their lower jaws. Could probably use an orthodontist and some braces, you think? It's a ferocious hunter constantly looking for the next victim, which is going to be a medium or large-sized fish. If a human catches a payara, it will defend itself, leaving cuts, nips, and bites, but there are no known cases of this cutie taking a human life. Well, that's good. The Yellow River in China received its name after its color, but it wasn't always this yellow. It was first formed at least 30 million years ago and shifted its course over 30 times over the centuries. Yellow sediments moving downstream from a plateau in the distance transformed it from clear to muddy. This fine-grained substance piled up at the bottom of the river and formed natural dams. The huge amounts of water that the river carries need to find their way to the sea, and that's when major floods happened, taking several million lives in various epochs. The locals tried to solve the problem by building higher and higher levees, but it only made things worse. Water coming out of the river would now have nowhere to back up, as the riverbed was higher than the surrounding land. This even shifted the river's mouth. Now there are massive dams and dikes all along the river to try to contain it. The Parana River is the second longest in Latin America and has many tributaries. They flow in from the highlands near the Andes, and there's a huge drainage in the wet season. This makes the river a perfect home for, guess what, piranhas. There are 30 to 60 species of these scary fish in the Parana waters. In late 2013, they attacked bathers cooling off by the water on a hot day. People started running out of the river as they felt something was biting them in the water. Luckily, no one lost their lives in the accident, but it's still considered one of the most audacious piranha attacks ever recorded. Biologists later determined that the type of piranhas, called palomates, was to blame for this, and humans had probably disturbed their breeding grounds. Well, the piranha also has a strong current that is tricky for boats and swimmers to overcome. Plus, it often floods, which can be dangerous for people living in the surrounding areas. The longest river in the world, the Nile, flows through 11 countries all the way into the Mediterranean Sea. Expeditions have spent centuries looking for its source, and no one still knows for sure where this mighty river begins. Adding to the mystery, the Nile takes an unexpected turn right in the middle of the Sahara. Scientists have figured out the reason is a massive underground rock formation from millions of years ago. The Nile has served as the most important water highway for civilizations through centuries, but it has some pretty dangerous inhabitants, like crocodiles that grow to be 20 feet long, which is slightly more than the height of an average giraffe. These bad guys can reach a speed of 30 miles per hour on land and take the lives of a couple hundred people every year. Hippopotamuses that also live here sometimes go after boats, and venomous snakes like the black mamba and the Egyptian cobra add to the mix. One of the most dangerous creatures on the Nile is the mosquito, as they carry around all sorts of diseases that affect hundreds of thousands of people. The Brahmaputra River in Asia carries waters from the mighty Himalayas. When the snows in the mountains melt, the river floods massively, causing landslides, displacing millions of people, and taking the lives of hundreds of animals in the nearby national parks. Such floods are also common during the monsoon season in India, from June to October, with heavy rains. The course of the Brahmaputra River is changed incredibly over the past 2.5 centuries. Erosion is another danger it's hiding. The banks of the river are mostly made of weak cohesive sand and silt, and even though the erosion rate has gone down, it is still the reason a lot of people lose their land and get displaced. The Brahmaputra is one of the few rivers in the world that has a tidal bore. That's a strong tidal wave that pushes up the river against the current where a river empties into an ocean or sea. And there you have it. Around 2,500 years ago, an earthquake completely changed the course of one of the largest and most famous rivers on the planet, the Ganges. Now, it's normal for rivers not to sit in one place, so if you live next to one, it could also just disappear without a trace or flood the whole city one day. In the case of the Ganges River, a supermassive earthquake became the reason for this dramatic change. Scientists say it might happen again, and it would be a huge problem for millions of people who depend on this river. The Ganges River starts as small streams in the Himalayas and travels a long way, over 1,500 miles. Along its journey, it meets other big rivers before all the water flows into the Bay of Bengal. The Ganges has the largest delta in the world among all rivers. Just like many other rivers in the region, it slowly changes its path over time. These changes, if they happen when a river wears away its banks, usually takes a long time, sometimes decades. Scientists have discovered that the Ganges-Brahmaputra river system has shifted several times over the last 6,000 years. When they looked at satellite images of the Ganges Delta, they noticed something interesting. There was a crescent-shaped dip in the ground about 28 miles away from where the river is flowing now. This depression was over 1 mile wide and stretched for many miles. They thought it might have been an old main channel of the Ganges River a long time ago. In 2018, the team decided to visit the area to check it out for themselves and take samples to learn more about it. While driving back home, they noticed a pit where someone was digging dirt to create a pond. The next day, they planned to fill it with water, but the researchers spotted something strange in the dirt. There were vertical bands of light-colored sand mixed into the darker mud. These special layers are clues from the past. They show that an ancient earthquake made sand and water shoot up from below the ground and created sand volcanoes that were trapped in time. The scientists studied the sand and mud and figured out that these earthquakes happened around 2,500 years ago and were strong, with magnitudes of 7 to 8. The epicenter was over 110 miles away from the main stem of the river, but it was powerful enough to displace it. It could have affected around 140 million people. The Ganges-Brahmaputra system is close to spots where Earth's tectonic plates meet, so earthquakes happen here often. There's no danger right now, but scientists think that another massive earthquake could happen in the next few hundred or thousand years. It could threaten up to 170 million people. That's about half the population of the U.S. No one can predict exactly when an earthquake will happen or how strong it will be. Learning how earthquakes in the past moved rivers helps scientists figure out patterns and make guesses about similar events in the future. This knowledge could help us prepare better and create safety plans before another big earthquake strikes. Now, the Ganges isn't the only river at risk. The Yellow River, the Irrawaddy River, and rivers in the United States like the Klamath and San Joaquin all face similar dangers. The mighty Mississippi River has also switched its path many times over the last 7,000 years. Right now, there's a huge system of dams and barriers called a control structure in central Louisiana. This structure's job is to stop the Mississippi from spilling over its banks and joining a nearby river. But scientists think that, in theory, these barriers wouldn't handle mega floods. So the Mississippi could break free and change its course again. This would cause massive problems, especially in southern Louisiana. One of the recent examples when a river changing its course caused disaster was the Kosi River in India. In August 2008, over just a few days, the river's path shifted by almost 60 miles, which is a huge change. Floods happen in some parts of the state rather often, but they hadn't seen such strong ones in over 50 years. They affected around 1,000 villages and 3 million people, and about 1 million people had to be evacuated to safety. Since many of these people hadn't faced floods in so long, they weren't ready to handle it quickly. It caused even more damage to their homes and lives. Scientists have been trying for decades to figure out what exactly makes rivers suddenly change their course. A new study explains that two things work together to make a river to do it. This process is called avulsion. First, there's the setup, which is like building up tension before something big happens. Over time, sediment, sand, dirt, and other stuff carried by the river gets deposited in certain places. It either raises the river above the land around it or makes a nearby slope steeper than the river's current path. Then there's the trigger, which is like the final straw that makes everything happen. This trigger could be a big flood, an earthquake, or even something like a pile of logs blocking the water. Now, researchers looked at satellite images of about 170 cases of avulsion from the past 50 years. They noticed these events happen most often near river mouths and near mountains. Rivers were about 3 times more likely to change course in these places than in the areas between them. They also studied 58 river channels in detail, using super clear maps to measure super elevation. That's how high the river is compared to the land around it. They also measured slope advantage. That's how steep a new path might be compared to the river's current one. They found that near mountains, rivers often pile up so much sediment that they become super elevated and spill over. But near river mouths, like in deltas, rivers need a steep slope advantage to break through the mud and form a new path. These two factors work together like a seesaw. If one is stronger, the other doesn't need to be as strong for an avulsion to happen. To figure out where a river might go if it changes course, the researchers created a smart computer algorithm. This tool uses maps to measure the terrain's steepness and the river's flow to predict where the river might move. They tested it on 10 past avulsions, and it correctly guessed the path every single time. Scientists hope they could use these findings to protect people living near rivers from sudden floods. Rivers changing course played a big role in creating one of the first organized administration systems in the world. Scientists found clues for this in the territory of ancient Mesopotamia. This name means the land between two rivers, and it was between the rivers Tigris and the Euphrates. People living there relied on these rivers for water, food, and transportation. Scientists wanted to figure out how these sudden changes in these rivers affected ancient people. To do this, they used two kinds of maps. The archaeological maps show how ancient cities grew over time, including what types of buildings people built. Certain buildings, like big palaces or city walls, could show when each city first had an organized administration. The second kind of map showed where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers flowed long ago. They often shifted, sometimes slowly, and sometimes very quickly and dramatically. Around the year 5000 BCE, Mesopotamia started to become drier, and farming became harder. Farmers had to grow their crops near rivers, where they could use the natural floods to water their fields or dig little channels to bring river water to their plants. Because farming was so important, towns and cities grew near the rivers too, so people could stay close to their food. But when a river suddenly changed its course, people didn't give up. They worked together to dig long canals to bring water from the new river path back to their fields. The canals helped them get water again, and the administration buildings showed they were organizing as a community to solve big